Hello, everyone. Welcome for coming. Welcome for coming. Welcome for coming. That's not correct. Welcome to this stream where we discuss prison and police abolition. And I got some wonderful guests. Not everyone who was supposed to come is here yet. They might come later, but we got some people who I have actually been have been keeping my eye on for a while, and I am very, very excited to have them on here today. American Johnson and Luna Oy are not here yet, but they will be here soon, hopefully. But I want to give you guys a little bit of a content warning because we are going to discuss a variety of different topics in this stream, such as life in prison, police abolition, police abolition, but also police violence, racism and white supremacy, settler colonialism, transphobia, and homophobia. So right now, we are waiting on other people, and we have Jock PalFreeman, who is a why don't you introduce yourself, actually?
Yeah, I don't actually consider myself an abolitionist per se, because I think the term is a little bit misleading. But yeah, I went to prison for 12 years for defending a boy with darker skin who was being beaten by about 15 neo-Nazis on the streets in Sofia, Bulgaria, which is in Europe, for people who don't know where Bulgaria is. And during my time in prison, we started the Bulgarian Prisoners Association and started fighting for, just fighting for prisoners' rights. So yeah.
Right. And also, if you want to support Jock PalFreeman, his Patreon is in the description below. So
Can you hear me? It sounds like people are saying.
No.
Okay.
No. We can hear you. We can hear
you.
You're good. Totally good. Anyway. So then there's also that thing, Dad. Hello. You are a newly acquainted friend of mine, and I am very glad you're here, and I want to have you introduce yourself as well. Also, I got an update from Luna. They're having technical difficulties with their computer, but they will be here soon enough. Hopefully, they just gave me an update. But anyway, tell me about yourself, that thing, Dad. Or what would you like me to call you by? That thing, Phil, or what would you like me to call you?
Yeah, Phil's fine. You can call me Phil. Yeah, my name is Phil. Go by That Dang Dad on YouTube and That Dang Phil on Twitter. Very consistent branding. That way no one forgets about me. Yeah, I am a former police officer from California. I quit several years ago, and after leaving the profession, I gradually started to move leftier and started to learn more about just the world and economics and all these things that I used to believe were normal and unquestionable, and started to have those unquestionable things questioned. And bing, bang, boom, a few years later, I am a police and prison abolitionist. And my YouTube channel did not actually start out to be political or anything like that. I was just sort of staying up late with my new baby and just reading things and talking about it. And then during the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, after George Floyd was murdered, I was like, dang, I got this channel. I got this, it wasn't big or anything, but I was like, I have this perspective on law enforcement, and I wonder if I should say something about it, and decided to. And Thought Slime was kind enough to give me a shout out, and that kind of blew up my channel. And now all you fine folks are here and have been very kind and welcoming of me to the leftist abolitionist community, even though I know people are suspicious, and rightly so, of former law enforcement. But doing my part to try to undo some of the bad stuff that I did, and just trying to support the movement however I can. And that's why I'm here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, we definitely stand Thought Slime here. Thought Slime has helped me in many ways with my channel as well. So it's glad to see that we have friends in close places. Next up, we actually have a friend who I'd never met before. This person, he actually was he how do I put this? He was introduced to this stream through Luna Oi, and Luna Oi is still, like I said earlier, is trying to get set up with her computer. So Eddie, I've never met you before, but Luna Oi advocated for you. So tell me about yourself. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. Absolutely.
All right, great. I usually have Wi-Fi problems, but I guess it's actually behaving for once.
No worries. This stream is actually pretty okay with Wi-Fi problems. If you do have Wi-Fi problems, the stream will be all right. And it'll continue, and you can always hop back in whenever you have an issue with Wi-Fi and when you're good with Wi-Fi. So anyway, tell me about yourself and your perspective on prison abolition. Your maybe how you became, if you became a prison abolitionist or a police abolitionist. Your thoughts on it, things like that.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Eddie. Pronouns he, him. So I guess I got into prison abolition when, well, I've always kind of found the concept of, a human being being locked in a cage to be pretty horrifying. But after the massive protests that we saw, and that I saw after the murder of multiple black men in North St. Louis around 2014, 2015. I really started to dive into issues surrounding police reform and prison reform. And the more I looked into it, the more I could see that reform is kind of impossible. So I guess that's about it. It really isn't that complicated. I just, in any like honest examination of the history of policing or the history of prisons and why these systems were created and why they still exist is pretty radicalizing, especially when you start realizing that prisons only exist to make a very small group of rich assholes even richer, I mean. And when you start realizing that like half the stuff I use at my university was probably created in a prison, it just really makes you start to think about the kind of people like people that are basically being used as slaves, being kept inside cages.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point, because we're not only going to be talking about how prisons essentially maintain the illness of society, but it also maintains like slavery in even with the 13th Amendment implemented, and how, and we'll get into how there are multiple aspects of pretty much sorry, I'm having a lot of things going on my computer at once. It's a little distracting. I apologize. But essentially, that's pretty much what we'll be going over. I have a lot of notes based on pretty much what you just pretty much went over, and I'm glad that you highlighted that in your introduction. Thank you for that.
And if I may add one more thing, I actually I have an uncle that's currently serving a 30-year sentence right now.
Oh my God.
My uncle may have robbed a few banks, which I don't see anything wrong with that. They rob us every day, so taking a little bit back doesn't seem like a problem to me.
I view the way I view that is I view it as like taking back what belongs to the people. That's how I view it.
Right. I have a suspended sentence, so I'm not allowed to condone any crimes right now.
Oh, of course, crimes are bad.
That's fair. Yeah,
crimes are bad.
yeah. We don't condone any crimes on YouTube or Twitch whatsoever. But however, it is good to take back what is yours. We will say that anyway. So
unless
What's up?
they are committed by Twitch and Facebook. If the crimes are committed by them, then we fully support it.
Yes. Because they legislate the laws. Anyway, so we finally got EJ and Luna. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, you two.
Are we coming through? Can you hear us?
We can hear you guys.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good to be here.
I hope it wasn't too stressful setting up. I apologize that happened. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It was a silly
We
thing.
have-
I just had to reset
Right.
one setting, but I couldn't find the setting, so it was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It's
But we're
okay.
here now.
Anyway,
Lesson learned.
so we're at the introduction stage of our stream right now. Do you want to give an introduction for both of you, Luna and EJ?
Who are you?
I'm American Johnson with I primarily run the channel Non-Compete, although Luna helps me with that. I'm an anarchist, anarcho-communist, but I am a syncretist, and I am not, I'm very much opposed to like dogmatism and that sort of thing. So that's something I've been talking about lately on my channel. I do anarchist puppet shows. I'm definitely a prison and police abolitionist. I've got a series I'm working on right now that's about police abolition, but I will be, featuring an episode about prison abolition specifically. So, yeah, I've been talking about this and thinking about this for quite some time.
And I'm Luna. I'm a Vietnamese communist. I was born as a communist, raised as a communist. I'm still communist right now. I run my channel Luna Ơi, and I mostly talk about Vietnam and communism in Vietnam and socialism, mostly related to Vietnam. And I also do like fun videos such as cooking, traveling, okay, stuff like that. I am because maybe I am a Marxist-Leninist, so I mostly want to raise my concern about the solution for police abolitionism and prison abolitionism. Yeah, because I concerned about that the most. Like, what's the alternative solutions for
Practical
Luna,
alternatives and solutions.
I remember you bringing that up in your last stream with DJ, and I explicitly made sure to put that as a note in my notes for this stream. So no worries. So we'll be going over solutions in this stream. Anyway, now EJ has pink headphones, and that is rad. Anyway, so the only one that we have left who is supposed to be joining us is Nora, and Nora will join us whenever. I don't remember what their pronouns are, but she. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I texted her and then hasn't got like reply yet. I don't know. She's very busy. She like out there in the street. And
Yeah.
She's like very
Very involved
time
with
and
direct
stuff.
action, and if she doesn't make it, it's not her fault. Like, she's got more important things to do right now. So we stand with Laura. I'm not Laura. I mean Nora. Nora. My apologies. We also, speaking of direct action, what you can do if you are at home and you want to get busy with getting started with prison abolition, you can actually go in the description, and there's plenty of resources. I spent like a lot of time getting those resources together. I got bail funds for you. I got like I'm talking about community bail funds. I got like books for you to read, and pamphlets, and even from all different people, all different types of people and backgrounds. I got Delve. It is a goddamn list. Seriously, it's a serious list. I got organizations for you to join that are like that are from different types of organizations. Like, I made sure that you can get started today getting involved with the prison abolitionist movement as soon as you can, even from home or on the street, however you feel fit. Get as educated as possible. This is an entry point video. So even if we don't teach you everything necessary that is involved with the prison abolitionist movement, and you feel that we don't, this diverse amount of perspectives doesn't satisfy you, that list of resources should at least get you in the right direction. So with that being said, let's begin. So I have like I said a list of things I want to like I said, this is not a strict list. This is like a, how do I put this? It's pretty much just a list of things I want to like highlight, and we can stray off of it if you want to. So the first thing is problems the police and prisons create, such as crime, lack of health care, evictions, and houselessness, such as gentrification. And that's something that, like me living in LA, and this is kind of like my introduction, really, right? I lived in LA. I live in Maine now, by the way. But when I lived in Los Angeles, it was a constant thing. It was a constant thing for me to see police officers harassing homeless people, and if they weren't harassing homeless people, they were kicking people out of their homes. Like,
Yeah.
and it didn't stop when I left Maine either. I'm sorry, not Maine, Los Angeles. Like, as soon as I made it to Maine, in El Sereno, California, which is a neighborhood in Los Angeles, the CHP were evicting squatters because landlords started raising the property value, and that, my friend, is the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest crime a capitalist can do, because it literally robs people of a shelter, and it gets people vulnerable to diseases like COVID-19 right now, and it gets people without a foundation to be able to survive to begin with, especially like a vacant house where like people are not able, or like where no one really owns it, when no one really like is using the house, like, and on top of that, maybe there's like electricity running, and even if there's not electricity running, you could bring a heater and a generator or something like that. It doesn't matter. The point is that an empty house is an empty house, and the fact of the matter is that you shouldn't kick people out of their house just because like they can't afford rent. I feel that is a moral issue. That is a moral fucking issue. The same thing is happening in Portland, and by the way, welcome, Nora. I want to give welcome to Nora, our comrade, and that we were just talking about. We were actually just praising you, and and I want to say hello to you, Nora. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always love being on.
No problem. We're glad to have you here. The point I was trying to make here is that gentrification, at least from my livelihood, from the way I lived in Los Angeles, is probably the biggest point of concern. In far as like police violence, I know there's all sorts of other intersections of police violence, such as and we can also talk about like how police violence targets transgender people, the Black community. It also targets like people of all sorts of marginalized communities. But one thing that it does in particular is that it defines who is basically a justified person based on what kind of capital they own, and that to me is a completely unjustifiable. Like based on like me as an anarchist understanding like what is a justified hierarchy and what is not. I feel that the police and the prison industry is not a justified hierarchy. So now that is my introduction, and I want to say, my friends, this is a free-for-all discussion. Anyone can pick it up at this point. So go for it. Anyone can speak first.
Well, sure. On the topic of police violence, so there's a part of North St. Louis called the Delmar Boulevard. It's a pretty busy shopping district in St. Louis, and Delmar is also famous for basically being the dividing line between the Black and white communities in St. Louis. So south of Delmar, houses are just gentrified to shit, and north of Delmar is basically just see like projects and Section 8. And I remember like last time me and my girlfriend, well, not last time, but one of the times me and my girlfriend were on Delmar Boulevard, we saw a man in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair. And when I walked past him, that like, you just get the feeling that something like ain't quite right. So I turned and I looked at this man, and I noticed there was like a pool of blood underneath him. So I go to help him out, and I realize that his foot is like, I don't want to describe on stream what his foot looked like. It was bad. So I tried to find a first aid kit at one of the local restaurants, and I cleaned him up a little bit, and I found some paramedics who had come to like help someone else who had like suffered from heat exhaustion. And I think that person was like his baby mama or something. They had some kind of previous relationship. But I was trying to, I basically spent like the next 5 minutes arguing with police officers, trying to get them to just acknowledge his existence while they were busy like standing around not doing jack shit like cops usually do. And they finally acknowledged his existence and sent some paramedics over to him. And it turns out that he had like bones protruding out of his foot and stuff. It was real bad, not just bad, but like pretty obviously bad.
Damn.
And this person, he had told me while we were I was trying to do some first aid on him, that he didn't want to talk to the cops because they had been harassing him before and kicking him out of the area before for panhandling. So, this guy is, pretty obviously not in the best economic situation. And, his life is already shitty enough, like not even being able to feel his feet when he has an injury. So I just tried to slip him $10, but he didn't even want to accept my money because he was afraid that a cop would see it. I think he was panhandling again.
Yeah, I just wanted to. That is like an awful situation, and I wouldn't wish anyone to go through that. But thank you for helping him out. That's really really awesome of you. I just wanted to add that there's lots of homeless people out here with untreated medical conditions. And like anytime there's something that's not life threatening, like the hospitals will just kick them out.
Oh, yeah.
And like in Boulder, Colorado, there's a huge problem with like NIMBYs and stuff, where there's literally people talking about running over homeless people and actually running over homeless people.
It's awful.
And they get injuries all the time that they had for years and years. And eventually all these people end up in prison because they just pile up on camping tickets upon camping tickets, loitering tickets, all that stuff. And I knew someone with like 25 camping tickets. It's like absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and this guy,
Can you just
this
explain
guy,
what
this
the
guy,
camping
you guys
ticket is
seen him
for
like,
those of us who don't know the language?
I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself? I don't think we got that through.
Can you just explain what a camping ticket is? Because this is a terminology that obviously we don't use in Europe.
Yes. So a camping ticket is something where essentially there's these urban camping bans saying you can't just camp, you can't put up a tent anywhere. And this is obviously targeted towards homeless people. So anywhere in a city, even like parks or stuff, they cannot put up a tent where else they risk getting arrested or getting a ticket.
Yeah, when I was working, I remember there was a camp that was set up basically right off of the freeway. So if you think of I don't know what the freeway situation is like in Europe, but in California where I work, there's lots of freeways, they're very busy, and there's lots of sort of incidental green spaces that just happen to be on the sides of freeways. And there happened to be a homeless camp that was siphoning power from a casino billboard. They had hacked into this billboard and were siphoning power. And we got called out to get rid of this camp. And one thing that really struck me when I went out there was they had built a white picket fence around their tents. And, I remember staring at it and thinking like, wow, this is a home. Like this, they decorated it. Like they put something here because they live here and they wanted it to look nice. And I remember just staring at that as literally the city called a bulldozer to come bulldoze this camp. And I remember just thinking like, wow, that's kind of fucked up. Like, and obviously at the time I'm not like I was now. I was pretty right wing and pretty whatever. But I just remember staring at this. I don't know, for some reason in my head, this white picket fence. It wasn't bothering anybody. They were on county property. Like they weren't taking up any land that belonged to somebody else. It was just county property, but they weren't allowed to be there. So we had to go fuck with them. Was kind of how it worked out.
Yeah, and like recently, I'm not sure if you've been around your city at all, but recently here in like Denver, entire parks are fenced off. They're putting like boulders in like the right of way area, which is basically where the utilities are, where like a small patch of grass on the sidewalk. They're fencing that off too. There's so many fences around Denver. It's ridiculous because essentially they're all trying to like sweep all these homeless people like 3 times a week, and also like to put up like their holiday stores, like their seasonal stores and like Santa's market or whatever. And yeah.
You two talking kind of reminded me of when I was homeless in Los Angeles, and I noticed other people being homeless in Los Angeles, like specifically in MacArthur Park area, where they had furniture there, like I remember seeing like a big coffee table they had like their possessions out, and like they weren't selling them. They were just like basically that's where they had like their first aid and their hygienic products and their necessities and even a couple luxury items here and there for because you can't. I mean, obviously you can't live a normal life without luxury. Of course, like Kropotkin literally fucking said this. But the point of the matter is that like they literally lived a life like they adapted their life to being like without a roof. And I remember one time I was walking past the 99-cent store. I've told this story a lot recently, and I want to kind of tell it in this stream just to kind of solidify it. When I was walking like by the 99-cent store, there were a group of tents that were like stationed kind of like right next to the wall of the 99-cent store, not on the 99-cent store, but like right next to it. And it was like they were basically like full of people who were homeless, not homeless, disabled, but yeah, they were homeless, but they were disabled and sick. I don't know if they had COVID, but they were very sick. They were just old, and they just weren't doing well. And there was once a couple times when I offered them food or money here and there because I just so happened to have something on me. They would always decline. But the one thing that I remember the most was when I watched them get arrested and their tents removed, and I ended up filming them, not the police officers doing it. And when the police officer turned around and filmed me, I ended up like walking away with the phone in my hand, and I went to the subway because I was going somewhere. And as soon as the subway rolled up, because it was underground, a group of police officers just started like coming towards me from the other side of the escalator, and they were all masked up, and it was like maybe 5 or 6 police officers ready to I don't know what they were gonna do, but I had my phone in my hand and I like filmed them too, again, and they just turned around and cowardly walked away. and ultimately it's just like they're honestly cowards, and not only are they cowards, but like they prey on people that are vulnerable, and that's the sickest part of it all. It's like they basically use the means of like in enforcing the legitimacy, if we're gonna use it for lack of a better term, of private property. They actualize private property, or they maintain private property. That's what I'm trying to say. They're trying to maintain private property for the sake of belittling other people. Anyway,
Hey, if I can address Amy here in the chat.
yeah,
You've never actually had to call the police before, have you, Amy? Also, hi, Amy.
No, but like
She's
let's
a
address that
friend of mine.
actually, because well, I agree with you.
Well,
I don't
can
think
I say something? Can I say something?
You may.
If you get robbed, what are the police going to do? They're not going to find what got robbed from you. You're not going to get it back. If you get kidnapped, I don't think the kidnappers are going to give you a telephone to call the police. And if you're stranded, you can call anyone. You can call me if you want. Like, stranded where, on an island? I mean,
Not to mention,
what are these?
Oh, I was gonna say, not to mention, not to mention, like, if something happens to you, like a murder or like a rape, or like something like that, usually the police doesn't necessarily get involved with investigation unless they have enough evidence, and they usually don't exactly get involved with like they usually don't get involved with like arresting someone until they actually have like a reason to like do so for capitalistic reasons, for like if they can get like money out of it, essentially. And to answer your question, who are you going to call?
Don't forget that the police also. Oh, sorry, thought you were finished. I was going to say, the police also commit crimes. I mean, and depending on what kind of community you live in or what color your skin is or whatever, you might be more likely to be a victim of a crime, whether it's being shot or being raped or being having your money taken from you. That's something that happens a lot. People have their cash and their possessions seized from the police. I mean, the state commits crime, and the state enacts more violence against the general public than most people, up to and including like taking your freedom, not just taking your life away from you in terms of shooting you or maybe the death penalty, but taking your freedom away from you. Right now, I think it's important to note that there's a massive wave, unprecedented wave of shoplifting in the United States right now, which is basically self-serve COVID relief. I mean, these are people. This is people who are desperate, who are in material need, so they're shoplifting. These people are being starved by the state. They're being starved by capitalism, and then if they try to go and alleviate their own situation of need, then they have violence committed on them by the state through the police. And also, there's plenty of situations where you're having your rights infringed upon by capitalists, by your employer, by the state, and then if you try to push back against that, if you're being evicted by your landlord, who is essentially shaking you down in a protection racket. What's the difference between a landlord saying, if you don't pay me every month, I'm going to threaten you with homelessness? I mean, that's the same as the mafia going into a business and saying, if you don't pay me protection money every month, we're going to fuck your shit up. So, I mean, and if you try to push back or resist against that, like a lot of people are doing right now with the like eviction resistance, that sort of thing, who are the agents that come in and commit violence against you? It's the police. So the police are basically organized criminals themselves, and they represent the gang that is the state and capitalism. So I think that's just an important.
And if I can add to that, my dad used to like, as a career, be a repo man to make money on the side because his shitty job didn't make enough money. So, taking from experience, people in authority are far more likely to take your car from you than ever find your car.
Right.
That's a good point. I can weigh in on this. Speaking as somebody who you did call when these things happened, I can tell you what will happen. So one of the worst times to be a cop is around Christmas time, because people burglarize and steal Christmas presents because they're all wrapped up nicely under the tree, and it's going to be a PlayStation or whatever. But okay, so your entire Christmas has just been stolen, burglarized from your house. So you call us and you get the laziest motherfucker that you've ever met will show up. Because we're all incredibly lazy, and one thing I try to explain to people about law enforcement.
Underpaid.
Well, I got paid very well to be incredibly fucking lazy. But one of the things I try to explain about law enforcement is that for you, the day that you were burglarized is the worst day of your life. For me, it's Tuesday, and you interrupted lunch to bring me out to this call. So I don't care, or I care a little bit. But so we come out and we look around and we go, did anybody see anything? And you go, no, we were out of town. And I go, okay. And then you say, will you dust for prints? And we will say, maybe. And we might, or we might not, and we won't find them. Or they'll be on the outside of the house, which doesn't mean anything. And the labs are backed up and they won't look at them anyway if we did find anything. So we will dutifully write down all the things that were stolen, and we will give you a business card with a number on it that says, here's the number to the report that has all of the things that have been taken. We'll let you know if we find anything. And unless we see somebody walking down the street with a Santa sack full of your presents, you'll never see them again, and we'll never find them, and nothing will ever happen. And this will just be the shitty story of your shitty Christmas. And I hate being like to reduce it to that, but the vast, vast, vast majority of reports that I took were never solved, were never resolved. No justice was done, but not even justice. There was no restoration, because like I don't know that you necessarily care that the person who took your stuff is, punished, but you want your stuff back. You want your security to be restored to you. We never did that. We never made it feel good again. We never made you feel safe in your home again. We never resolved that for you. So when you ask me, who am I going to call when these things happen? Who are you going to call now? What are they going to do? They're going to do very, very little, and you're not going to feel safe. You're not going to feel served by it.
Also, Amy, there's no reason why an armed agent of the state has to be the person who mediates like what is essentially like a very minor like interpersonal problem. Like why does it have to be the person you call when someone hits your car? It has to be a guy with a gun with the legal authority to arrest you.
And
that's an interesting point. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, and like we literally have evidence that like the police don't actually like investigate, like because when right before the Minneapolis police station burned down, like years upon years of documents were liberated by the people, and what they discovered was horrifying. They discovered tons and tons of like rape kits where they literally had DNA evidence and like bodily evidence that someone got raped, and they just ignored it. They didn't continue with the case at all. And they literally had the evidence to prosecute, and they just ignore it. Like, the police don't fucking care.
Yeah, first of all, I think we've all got friends who've been victims of crime. I've been a victim of crime myself. My friend's mother was actually sexually assaulted. It was a date rape. And she was, at that time, probably about 40, 45 years old or something like that. But anyway, the police degraded her. They said that she was like dressed in a way that meant she asked for it. And these kinds of stories are dime a dozen. I mean, if you talk to anybody who's experienced, had to go through this terrible kind of tragedy, you hear these kinds of stories come up again and again and again. It happened to somebody that I know. I've had my house broken into, and it was exactly the way that it was described in terms of they came in, they stood around for a few minutes, they wrote down some information, and they left, and I never got my stuff back. Interesting enough, whenever I was a capitalist and I ran a business, they spent a little bit more time at my business, but they still never did anything to
my
really
mom actually, when I was a kid, I remember there was a day there was a woman friend of my mom came to my house and lived for a few days, and then after that I feel that she was running away from cops.
Oh, really? Well, Vietnam's a good example because, I mean, speaking to what Eddie was talking about, I got my first week in Vietnam, I got into a small motorbike accident with another person who was also riding a motorbike. It was my fault. And we basically we crashed on this big kind of really busy street, and and a lot of Vietnamese people like came outside. And I've seen this happen since then a lot, but this is the first time I experienced it. A lot of Vietnamese people came outside, and like the Vietnamese people, generally speaking, I think Luna can attest to this, don't want to deal with the cops.
No,
they just
we
like
don't.
they don't want to deal with the cops. Like it's
Nope.
like not considered useful at all. So they basically right there on the spot, like 10 or 15 witnesses came up, and we talked about it. And the guy I hit was really pissed, and it was my fault. So they just decided, okay, how much is it going to cost to fix your motorbike? Is anybody hurt? No. Okay, why don't you give him $10? I gave him $10, and we went on our way, and that was it. And everybody left the situation totally happy and satisfied. And I've seen that happen again. And in fact,
Nobody wants to involve cops in that.
yeah, I was in a car
Yes.
one time. I was in a car that was like taking us to the airport, and that car got into a crash with another like vehicle, and the same thing happened. Like the whole like all the people that saw it came around. They talked about it for a few minutes. They figured out the restitution, and everyone went on their way. And they were trying to do it very quickly so as not to have to worry about the cops. So like, and that happens all the time. I mean, you know, maybe there are some situations where we need some kind of formal restorative justice process, and I think that there definitely are. But a lot of the things that the police sort of like formalize into these big, like you know, these big,
make things worse.
yeah, they make it into a big sound and fury signifying nothing, and it ends up costing a lot of people with like legal fees. It ends up taking people's like freedom away from them in very ridiculous situations where it's completely unnecessary. And I just think that the kind of grassroots, and in fact, Vietnam has a grassroots personal inter-conflict system that's really interesting, where like if you're having a conflict with your neighbors, they don't want you to go to the police first. They want you to go to this intermediary peer-to-peer grassroots conflict
Yes.
resolution process.
We talked to those people.
Yeah, we've been through it ourselves because our neighbors play karaoke way too loud. But it's basically a restorative justice process where you sit down with your neighbors and you work out problems in your community together. And the police and the state are never involved in it. So as much as my fellow anarchists like to think of Vietnam as this big authoritarian state, a lot of the solutions that Vietnamese people have come up with for themselves are very anarchic in nature, and circumvent the state and work to great effect. So I think that's just there. And by the way, this is like nothing new. Cultures have been dealing with these kinds of problems for thousands of years before capitalism and before the police state emerged. So I mean, you can go back to thousands of years and see how people have been able to work things out with their neighbors and solve a lot of these problems. I mean, you know, not the vast majority of crime is not serious violent offenses. That's not what tends to be clogging up the justice system as it's referred to. So I think we just need to kind of think about it and reframe it in our minds, and we can find that there are a lot of these solutions to these problems are a lot more simple than they might appear.
Real quick, I want to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to bring up a statistic that backs EJ's point up real quick. So, Amy, police keep the order on the street by catching people who speed. I'm going to tell you a story on when I was driving on the 14 freeway of Antelope Valley, California. So I was driving on a very dark freeway, and I saw some high beams behind me, and I was going 65, which is the speed limit. And I was like, this is blinding me in my rearview mirror. Maybe I should move to the other lane and not, cause any conflict, right? So I did that, to be safe. Then all of a sudden, the vehicle behind me moved behind me again. They moved to the same lane, and I was like, this is really weird. So I moved again back to the lane I was originally on, and they actually moved back to my tail again, and I was just like, this is really strange. So I don't know what to do. They really don't like me for some reason. So I decided to go a little faster, and I was going from 60 to 80, which 80 is usually when you get pulled over for a ticket, if you're speeding at this point in California. And the vehicle in question that was tailing my ass was a cop, and basically I got pulled over. The cop basically came over with the smuggest smile on his face, and he was like, you know why I pulled you over? I mean, obviously I shouldn't have said anything, and and honestly, the real thing I should have said was, no, I don't know why, because that's actually some actual legal advice I got from a real lawyer that told me what the response to that is. But I felt the initiative to be a little smart ass and say, well, you actually tailed my ass, and you tried to make quota this month. So you blinded me in my rearview mirror, and you made me unsafe as a driver. So you, as a driver, were weaponizing your vehicle to do so, and so now you're trying to give me a ticket for doing so. The cop was like in utter shock, and he was just like, "All right, have a good day," and he just went back to his car and drove off. And I waited at least like 3 minutes before I started driving in case he tried to pull off another bullshit shenanigan. Now I'm gonna just pull up the BOP, the Bureau of. Actually, no, sorry. No, I apologize. It is the wrong. The wrong server. The wrong. Darn it! Where is it? Where is it? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to do it as quick as I can. Come on, computer. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. To back EJ's claim up, right? To back EJ's claim up. There we go. Yeah. So drug offenses. We're going to talk about drug offenses. Drug offenses actually take the highest rate of crime. And let's talk about crime, because that's the next thing on the list. Crime has been defined by the state in a myriad of ways that are pretty unjustified. And basically, when we look at crime, there's different types of crimes. There's drug offenses, which are basically when someone is struggling in life, and they pretty much are I mean, there's all sorts of nuance here, and I'm pretty much gonna highlight. I'm not even gonna really highlight. I'm pretty much glossing over a lot of it. But like drug offenses aren't necessarily like crimes that necessarily harm other people, but necessarily harm yourself. They harm yourself. And when you as a drug user go to prison for using drugs, you're getting more harm. And then on top of that, when you leave prison, you develop mental illnesses, and you pretty much start actually committing crimes. Like it's been consistent. And like we're talking about also like property crime too, right? There's property crime, which is basically like I mean, I've never been injured in my life for seeing a Black Lives Matter graffiti before, right, Kyle Rittenhouse? Just saying. Seriously, it's just like it's absolutely utterly absurd that there is a large amount of emphasis on trying to arrest people for property crime, because it's mainly the idea that like we need to protect the value of capital over people's lives, especially when that capital is actually harming people's lives, such as the example that I gave earlier with gentrification. Basically, like landlords raising the property value of the home and essentially kicking people out and putting them on the street, so that way they get COVID and the other diseases and they don't have a shelter, and etc. Property crime is a non-issue for the most part. It is a non-issue. It is, and then of course you get crimes such as murder and rape and etc. Now, let me just say right now, prison abolition and police abolition, I'm going to be upfront with you, is not going to solve every single case ever. But what it will do, it will solve the very systemic problem that is the continuing issue that these institutions create, that perpetuate these anguishes in our society, such as murder and rape and all the other crimes that we talk about, and sex offenses and things like that. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that even if the police was necessary, if we were even to hypothetically like entertain that idea, it essentially, like, trying to think of the word to say, right? It's like their interest is not necessarily in the hands of the people. They don't serve and protect the people. They serve and protect the capitalist and landlord class. They serve and protect the people with property. They serve and protect people who own capital for the sake of maintaining the state. And the state has especially within the year of 2020, I'd argue, is pretty unjustified no matter who you elect. But that's a stream for another day. I think I've actually made plenty of videos on that. You can go ahead.
Scott, just to back up what you're saying, just a very, very brief story. There was a time where we got a directive from the city council to have a zero tolerance policy against homeless people who were, quote unquote, stealing recyclables from the recycling bins that were left out. And if to back up what you're saying, the reason that we were to have a zero tolerance policy against people stealing trash is because the city got a kickback from the waste management company who collected the recycling, because the recycling company got a kickback from the government for the tonnage of recycling material that they would recycle, to do their thing. And so because the recycling company, the corporation, was incentivized to increase their tonnage, they would penalize the city if the city did not deliver the tonnage of recycling material that they thought was appropriate for a city of our size. And so because the city was going to be financially penalized for not producing enough trash, we were supposed to go out and hassle people who were barely feeding themselves by stealing discarded cans, bottles, and things like that. So when you hear about, they're cleaning up the streets from the people that are, stealing, like half the people that we were supposed to arrest were people stealing trash because it was making the waste management corporation less rich.
But if the waste management corporations don't have that garbage, then what are they going to dump in the Indian Ocean?
Good counterpoint.
Okay, good night, Amy.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I want to maybe talk to you a little bit by my Vietnamese perspective of cops in Vietnam, because somebody before asked me about like my North Vietnamese perspective about pigs. It's very interesting. Vietnam, we don't have patrols. Okay. We do not have police riding on the street and then driving on the street and then like just caught people like that. We don't, and we don't need it. That means like it's not even necessary to like check people with the speed or something like that. It's so stupid. We don't have it. And like I live in Vietnam for like 30 years of my life, and I never got bothered by any cops. I got caught twice by traffic police, and that's it. And then I bribed them instead of paying the money to the ticket. I bribed them like I offer his. That's true and funny story about me and my mom got caught by the traffic police. She didn't see the red light, and then so she just crossed the red light, and then the traffic police stopped us, and then like asked for like the offer to write her a ticket and pay like $400,000. It's like $20. So me and my mom like, okay, for now I don't have that amount of money in my wallet, and then like, why don't we just pay you $5 instead? Okay, is that okay? At first he didn't agree, and then like, okay, we can go and pay to the government $20, but like you're not gonna have any dollars out of that. So like, why don't you just take us $5 and take $5 of us and let us go? So like, okay, fine, that's fine. So like, it means like even the cops in Vietnam, they are not that crazy about the tickets. They rather take like $5 into their pocket and let us go instead of let us dealing with like all the paperwork and the shitty, and like we have to pay like $20. Yeah, and then like, and when I learned about what the police over there is dealing with people, I was shocked. Even until now, I was fucking shocked. Because Vietnam we are the one who've been criticized for being like authoritarian, police like oppress people, but actually no, we don't. we are not scared of cops as much as the USA citizen, and like, wow, I'm learning a lot here, man. Jeez. So that's it.
Luna,
I
what's
just
it
want
like?
to. Yeah.
Please tell us what
Uh,
it's like not to be afraid of cops.
it's oh my gosh. Here's the thing: the cops in Vietnam. I want to talk about the history of cops in Vietnam a little bit. Cops in Vietnam was established in 1945 by Ho Chi Minh. Okay, by freaking Ho Chi Minh in 1945 when he had our successful communist revolution. And the cops originally they were all communist. And and then like they came from like poor people, not like cops in the USA. You started from like slaves hunters, and that's horrible. Maybe that tells a lot about the cops culture in Vietnam and in the USA, because the roots are so different.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So, Bulgaria, Bulgaria actually has the second highest per capita. I'm trying to translate from Bulgarian to English in my mind. So, Bulgaria has the second most amount of police in Europe per capita, and it's just massive cop industry over here. And actually, one of the ironies over here, it's a throwback, of course, from the Bulgarian communist times. Uh, so there are definitely some countries who did things better than others. But basically, there are so many police here that the budget is stretched so thinly that the police don't even get proper wages. So instead of, and the problem is that the government can't fire them. The government can't fire them because they are such a massive voting bloc. So there are so many police and families that rely on being employed as police, that if they started firing them and trying to fix the system, then the people would get pissed, and then they wouldn't vote, and then the government would lose those votes in the next election, and then they'd lose government, basically it's a massive endless cycle over here in Bulgaria. And absolutely, I wrote an article on our association webpage about this. Absolutely, the police in Bulgaria are absolutely the number one biggest organized crime group in here by far. All the heroin is being trafficked and sold by the police. Trafficking, human trafficking, refugee, illegal immigration, refugee smuggling, everything. I mean, everything from like every now and then they arrested police and prison guards who were illegal logging, cutting down trees to sell for firewood without permits, without permission, and just cutting down large parts of the forest. And finally, when some other police came, they found out that they were all police. I don't know what happened, how they got arrested, but it was in the media. And basically over here, like 100%, definitely to reduce to greatly reduce the amount of police over here, absolutely would make Bulgaria a safer. I just can't. It's just crazy over here. The amount of crimes that the police do. Basically, every police organization that is responsible doing that crime. So earlier this year, there was a big scandal because the so-called economic police, which are supposed to be monitoring crimes committed by businesses, they were going around to, of course, small businesses, not the big ones, because the big ones are in bed with the government. The economic police were going around to the smaller businesses and actually racketeering them and saying, if you don't pay me this much money every month, we're going to come and shut your business down. So like the anti-drug police traffic the drugs, the police in charge of patrolling are trying to racketeer prostitutes, and they're also selling drugs on the street. It's just insane.
So you mentioned that the police were trafficking human beings.
Oh yeah. They. I mean, like it's not maybe. I mean, yeah, they're definitely involved with selling children outside of Bulgaria. So like illegally trafficking minors to sell them to adoptive parents, and then also trafficking people into Bulgaria from Turkey. I mean, they had there was also. I mean, this happens all the time, but basically the irony is that they put up a big, huge. The fascist party was very proud that they put up a big fence on the border with Trump would be envious, and they put up a big fence on the border between Bulgaria and Turkey, and the traffic of drugs and people didn't get reduced. It stayed about the same. So, and what they found was that the Bulgarian police were literally putting people on a coach bus, like a huge bus, and the bus would just be driven through the border, and every person being smuggled was paying like some crazy amount, like 30,000, like maybe about $50,000. Let's say $50,000 was being paid, and that was being divided by all the police in the border. I mean, like the it's very famous here. The police at the border are so corrupt that they all know how to say the color blue or the color green or the color red in Turkish language, because when the Turkish truck drivers get to the Bulgarian border, the Bulgarian police don't speak Turkish, but they know the name of the colors of the currency. So the Turkish truck driver will give them, for example, like $5, let's say, and the $5, let's say, is green. And the border police will say, no, blue, I want blue. And blue is, let's say, $20. So yeah, just the corruption here is just out of this world. There's even famous pop songs about how Bulgarians are coming back with a carload of stuff that they've bought in Turkey, and they the entire pop song is about bribing the police at the border. So, yeah, okay, that's all I want to say.
I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying. This kind of ties back to this is not even in my notes. It kind of just what you said kind of reminded me of the fact that we have a whole institution of police, which is ICE, and they primarily focus on rounding up immigrants to pretty much just like suffer in a concentration camp, and it's like it's like the reason why the reason why immigrants are mostly here in the first place is because the United States went over to their country, destroyed their economy, destroyed their democracy, and they planted dictators there. I got many videos talking about this. How the U.S. is like extremely imperialist, especially in Central and South America. Guatemala is one extreme example where like they completely destroyed that country for hundreds of years, 100 years specifically. And also kudos to Guatemala for burning down their Congress. Just saying. But the point I'm trying to make here is what I'm trying to say here is that
Burning down
they got to a
Minecraft
point
in the game parody.
Parodies, yeah, in a video game. My point is that they like the United States have planted dictators like Jorge Ubico and Augusto Pinochet in order to make economies that were benefiting the people and the peasants and immigrants. I'm not immigrants. Indigenous peoples of those territories, and they basically supported entire genocides there. They they basically funded entire like military squads to pretty much just like cause coups over there for like, you know, stabilizing and pretty much like really really amazing, innovative, wonderful governing bodies of countries that were otherwise doing really well. I think one example being when after 50 years of U.S. repression towards Guatemala, because U.S. were basically trying to implement like standard fruit into Guatemala as like a hub for like, you know, to like basically steal bananas and to like profit off of like, you know, the slave labor that they were pretty much implementing onto them by planting a dictator by the name of Jorge Ubico and enacting vagrancy laws, so that way, like if the indigenous workers and peasant workers, if they wanted to leave their job, they would be shot on the spot, basically. And this, like, that's how bad things were at that time. So once they actually kicked the dictators out of the country, they started doing reforms. Like, they weren't necessarily revolutionary, like in terms of like, you know, like they still kept the infrastructure of like, you know, the neoliberal infrastructure that was the United States and all of that inside of there, but they gave back peasants their land and indigenous people their land, and you know they elected politicians that were popular to the people. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, the next minute you had like Dwight Eisenhower talking to Edward Bernays on how to like make a campaign on how to legitimize a coup in Guatemala.
We needed those bananas.
Well, I guess we fucking need bananas. I mean, it's not like I guess we can't just grow them ourselves, you know.
I mean, I don't see a problem with the company Standard Fruit controlling the entirety of a sovereign nation.
I don't know. I disagree, because like if like I understand if like you know, if like a collective of people in Guatemala want to like, if they want to trade bananas with other groups of people throughout the world, if they want to do that, that's fine. Especially since I love bananas. I think bananas are one of my favorite things to eat. It's part of my diet, honestly, because it's a good source of potassium. However, I don't think you need to do it by enacting a dictator who who literally came from the same university as Augusto Pinochet, like straight up. I don't think you need to do it by doing that. I mean, and I mean that could be. That's another. I mean, I don't know. What I think I said enough. What else would you like to say? I don't know.
Well, have you considered that it makes some people a lot of money?
Yeah.
I wanted to comment briefly on one of we were talking about police being the criminals, and I wanted to talk about one concrete example that I saw happen. So the city that I worked was predominantly first and second generation immigrant and Hispanic immigrant. And so as part of that, there were a lot of undocumented immigrants in my city, family members and just people that came to escape, you know, oppression and poverty and things like that. And so because a lot of people in the city that I worked were undocumented, they could not have bank accounts. And if you're somebody that has never had to deal with not having a bank account, it might surprise you to learn all the things that you can't do because you can't have a valid place to put your money. And so one of the big, I don't know if I would call it a scam or the system working as intended or what, but private parties in my city would decide to sell houses, restaurants. Restaurants was a big thing. Yeah, somebody would sell a restaurant and they would have to pay in cash and in big envelopes of cash to sell these things, cars, things like that, because you couldn't do a bank transfer. You couldn't do a cashier's check. You had to pay in cash. And so what would happen is a police officer would stop somebody driving down the street. They would search their car, often with, we'll say, tenuous permission, tenuous consent. And they would find a big sack of money, and they would say, "Hey, what's this for?" And the guy would say, "Oh, I'm buying a restaurant." And the other guy would go, "Do you have any documentation or paperwork to prove that?" And no, they don't, because it was a handshake deal. And they'll go, "Okay, well, I think this was for drugs, so I'm going to confiscate it. And unless you can prove that you didn't have this money for drugs, we're going to keep it." And so these are undocumented people that can't prove anything. They can't show up in court, or they will be deported back to Mexico or wherever. And so we would just steal their money, because we knew there was nothing they could do about it. There was no documentation they could produce. And it was to buy a restaurant to feed their family. And even at the time, I was like, boy, we really have them between a rock and a hard place. Like, Jesus Christ, there's nothing they can do about this. And that's happening all over the United States. Civil asset forfeiture has stolen more money from people than burglary combined, all in the United States. That's a stat I just saw. At least it was true in 2019. I'm sure it's true in 2020.
That's crazy.
Civil asset forfeiture steals far more money than burglary, robbery, theft, shoplifting. Pales in comparison to civil asset forfeiture.
Well,
That's so depressing. It's so depressing to hear.
I don't know if you saw that that clip from John Oliver where he what was that court case called? Like the United States versus roughly $60,000 in cash or something. Because like the person isn't on trial. It's like it's the property that has been seized. So it's basically impossible to prove that you were going to use like money or whatever for the purpose you say it's going to be used for. So cops basically just have free run to whatever the hell they want. And speaking of robbery,
over here we have.
math. Speaking of robbery, I just ran the math, and turns out in this town I'm in right now.
Hold on, please stop interrupting Eddie, please.
In the town I'm in right now, of roughly 20,000 people, the police budget makes up like 33% of the town's budget. And yeah, Jock, I know what you're saying. I got pretty bad lag here too.
I don't know. So what's the solutions for that? I can give you some like what Vietnam is doing. I know the Vietnam is not perfect and there's still a lot of problems. The police here are very corrupt, but like this is what we do. This is like for house abusive, like the fight between husband and wife or something. In every district we'll have a team of like this local people, and they join together. And then like whenever we heard like some like fighting in any house or somebody report to them, people will report to them first, and then they will go to that house and try to talk and to stop that fight and try to deal with it first before the cop will come. And then the second thing is like especially in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City is the biggest city in Vietnam, the really dense city, and like the huge amount of crimes right there. And we have a team of people called the Saigon Knights. So it means like they are just like poor driver, like motorbike drivers on the street, and then they gather together and they help people deal with crimes. And then actually like local people, they trust the Saigon Knights more than the cops. When they got robbed, they got like thief, like burglary, and then they would like their children got kidnapped or something, they will contact the Saigon Knights first before contacting the cops. So, and then they actually deal with a lot of crimes, and they people just pay them like as much as they can. They don't obviously they don't ask for any money. People just want to help after they dealing with the crimes, something like that. So maybe like building a dual power structure out of cops is an idea. What do you think about that?
Jock, if you want to go, you can go now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, like people, what you're just saying about people organize, security, I guess, social caring for the society. But I just wanted to say something, go back more about the money, taking money, you can't prove it. That dang dad was talking about. Over here we have the opposite problem, I think, in that over here, money can only be confiscated by the state if the state can prove that it's connected to a crime. So so you can have, and so the problem over here is that you have like millionaires, billionaires, like these massive oligarchs who are just these crazy capitalists who have basically there's generally no rich person, at least stinking rich over here in Bulgaria, who has made their money like as some type of like honest capitalist kind of thing. Basically, after the Bulgarian Communist Party dissolved itself, there was this massive theft of all the collectivized property, the land, the factories, everything that the state and the people were building and was liberalized for like cents. Like they sold entire factories for like $1, you know. Um, and so the problem with that, all of that stuff is but of course not for normal workers, but for the oligarchs and for the billionaires. They can have mansions and they can have just literally entire houses full of cash, and the police and the state, not only can they not do anything, but they don't want to do anything because they're working together. But the crazy thing is that because of that, there's there's a massive deficit in the budget, and it's basically it's insane. So if you have you can have $1 million in cash, and the police can't ask you where is it from, what you're doing with it. If someone is stupid enough and admits that it's connected to a crime, then they can take it. Otherwise, it can't be touched. So here it's kind of like we have the opposite problem of what you were talking about in America. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Nora, did you want to talk real quick? After you, I want to shift the conversation to the same. I mean, obviously, we're still talking about the same general topic, but to a new intersection of this topic. So, go ahead, and if anyone wants to say any last words, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to like a while ago when we were talking about how the police don't protect like life, they protect property. There's literally been several Supreme Court cases where the court ruled this very thing. Like if there's someone literally dying, the police have no obligation to like help them, like on duty.
Yeah.
Like they have no obligation. And it's like this whole like lie and scam that we're told that the police like are supposed to protect life and property, but the only thing they're legally obligated to protect is property. And I've literally experienced this before, like firsthand. I've seen other people experience it where someone's like having a heart attack and the police literally don't do anything. Like they don't start CPR, they just show up and then stand around. And yeah.
Okay. I'd like to shift the focus. And by the way, that is a really terrible thing that happened. By the way, that's really awful. I'd like to shift the focus to a hot button issue. So, in my opinion, this is my opinion here. I'd like to hear what you all think. I believe that the police state breeds fascism. It breeds like the entire notion of the police state. Like it breeds militia, like fascist militias that maintain the police state as well. So, and we recently have like we recently have a kid who was literally brainwashed into being like he was literally he went okay. Kyle Rittenhouse, for those who don't know, came from Illinois to Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he pretty much like protected a parking lot, and this parking lot was the primary focus of this militia group called the Kenosha Guard, and they were pretty much like a militia group that was they were pretty much, as far as I'm aware, the police claim that they were not working with the Kenosha Guard, but there's been reports of and pictures and videos of the Kenosha Guard working with the police, and like the police giving them water bottles, and even the police giving Kyle Rittenhouse a water bottle, and things like that. And there was also pretty much and you have to understand that at first the Kenosha Guard came into the city as if they were protecting the protesters, and it's like, protecting the protesters from what? The police, because that's really what the protesters need to be protected from. If anything, because they're expressing their First Amendment right to assemble, especially after another black man has been killed. Pretty much what followed after that was Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 people and injured 1 person, and the 1 person who basically survived, basically they harassed him so not they, his followers, the Kyle Rittenhouse's followers, they harassed him so much that his family was in jeopardy of being they were threatened. They got death threats. His own family got death threats. They made up lies about who the victims were. They and with almost no material basis whatsoever. They pretty much tried to justify. They've been trying to justify the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse has killed criminals, but really they're not doing a good job of it, and ultimately they're and let's put it this way. Let me update this a little bit. Kyle Rittenhouse has already lost a 1 court meeting so far. He's being currently tried for murder charges right now. I do want to twist this, however, give us a little plot twist here, and I do want to spin this back to prison and police abolitionism. Right now, without police and without prison, I believe that we wouldn't have a brainwashed child growing up in a Blue Lives Matter culture in America, and like that, straight up, we would not have that situation happening. That's my opinion. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
But I do think this is a natural consequence of like you said before, living in tends to be a constant state of being propagandized about the police. You just look at anything you see on TV. 24-hour news media is always deferent to authority, particularly police officers. They take headlines basically directly from the press statements of police officers. The most popular shows in America are about cops who beat people up, but for good reasons. Just watch any episode of Law and Order. So with this constant environment of being propagandized 24/7, to be deferent to authority figures and to view the police as good guys, it's not really far-fetched to think that people in this kind of culture will begin to value the property that the police protect over the people that they're protecting it from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy you said that.
Phil, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I've had experience. I can't remember if Kyle Rittenhouse specifically was a police cadet. But if you've ever heard the term police cadet or police explorers, those are the high schoolers that we get in and train them in police things to get them ready for law enforcement, so that they can have a long and glorious career in law enforcement. And as I was reading about Kyle Rittenhouse and kind of his whole vibe and his whole thing, I was just really struck by, like, I knew him. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know him personally, but I knew hundreds of kids like him that were obsessive about law enforcement, and they revered it. And it was like this, wow, this special thing, and wow, it's such a prestigious thing to do. And they would become police cadets and police explorers, and they would spend their days off of school. They would spend their weekends training and doing physical training with us, and doing ride-alongs with police officers. And so I just, in Kyle Rittenhouse, I recognized somebody that revered law enforcement, revered that whole lifestyle. And the thing that I recognized
It's a
in
cult.
Kyle Rittenhouse was this desire to please. And the kids that were cadets and explorers with us, they really wanted to show off, and they really wanted to impress us. And one of the ways that you do that in law enforcement is by showing off how tough you are, by showing off what a badass you are. And so in Kyle Rittenhouse, I see a kid showing off what a tough badass he is, trying to curry favor with these, the law enforcement people that he really looks up to. And so I felt like, I don't know, I felt so shitty about it, because I see this, what I consider a child soldier, trying to show off, trying to show that he can kill just like the cops that he reveres, because I've met 100 kids like him.
Yeah, like, I just wanted to echo like that, and like, as being like one of the younger ones, I guess, here, like, I remember in school, like, the entirety of the school system was like a lot of propaganda. It was like, cops are absolute saints. Like, police would come in. I'm not sure. I just want to clarify that I went to like a really fucking white ass like privileged school. So everyone's experiences are going to be different, but this is my like white privileged school system, and where cops would like come into school and like propagandize us. They were like, like, cops just want the best for y'all. Like, we're not here to punish you. Like, that we're just here to enforce the law, but we're people too. Like, let's work together on issues, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here, teaching you about the law, so that you don't end up in prison. Blah 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 blah. And I would love to have someone on who didn't come from like as a privileged school as I did, see like how the experiences like differ from my like white privilege school. And then I also want to say that essentially, like, yeah, like, the cops are like fashy as fuck. Like, they support the fash. Like, my own experience with that is like many times right-wing militia is being protected by the cops, where our side would be like, like, getting shot at by pepper balls and whatnot, and they would be like having casual conversations. I've seen many cops in my area with 3%er tattoos. I've seen many cops with who just like decorate their house and like all these like fashy things, and etc. And then Jack, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, there was a book written by a cop in Australia, and he was he basically he outed the cops in his station for selling drugs, basically, and for racketeering and for stealing and mugging people, and he wrote a book about it, and he kind of he felt it went too far. He was part of some of the more pettier stuff, but he drew the line when his group of cops were going to go murder some drug dealer who was not pulling the line. And in the cop station, this is in Australia, this is not the United States of America. It's not gone so far, but the cops in the police station had a bag of non-registered weapons, with the numbers missing or whatever, obviously that they had confiscated from other people, and it was in the staff changing room, in a locker in a sports bag, all these weapons that the police used for murders. And the cop said, "Oh my God, they're taking me to a murder or something," and he was a whistleblower, and he went to internal affairs and everything, and they arrested the cops and put them in prison and blah blah blah. But the reason I'm telling this story is because in the book he I don't know if it was the underbelly dude. I don't know. I think the name of the book is Filthy Rat or Dirty Rat or something like that. Because of course all the cops turned against him and called him a rat and a traitor. He got death threats from the police. They put bullets in his letterbox and things like this. But the reason I'm telling this story is because he talked about the culture of the police, and like I said, it's a cult. And really, the culture he was talking about was that because so many Australians don't like the police and basically hate the police, basically no one wanted to be friends with anyone who became police. So the problem with that was that the police would then make their own like cultish subculture group, which was completely separate and independent from mainstream society. I mean, people were saying that like they're ostracized by even their family. Their family, when somebody becomes a cop, the family turns their back on them, says, "I don't want anything to do with you anymore," and then that pushes the police into only relying on one another. Only it becomes a gang, basically. It becomes a new family, it becomes a new gang, and the loyalty for the police is to one another. It's to the gang. It's not to the law. It's not to the society. It's not for the benefit of people. And this is a major problem. Is this cultish problem that the psychological brainwashing that the people in the police department have? Because really, like if your partner commits a crime, even if it's a small crime, you're for sure you're going to turn your back on it, So where I'm supposed to be a cop and I'm supposed to be fulfilling the law, but if my mate steals something and I see him stealing something, of course I'm going to shut up because I'm loyal to him. I'm not actually loyal to the law. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I am very thankful that you said all that, Jock, because yeah, I have two main points to highlight which illustrate exactly what you're saying. So first of all, a lot of people in the comment section in the chat are talking about the DARE program right now, and their experiences with school and the brainwashing process in school. Yeah, I'll share mine a little bit. So there was one incident where I was I grew up in Burbank, California, and in Burbank, California, it's literally the city where like reject police officers in LAPD go to if they get fired. Pretty much, that's pretty much what the system is like there. That's from what I've heard, and they're pretty notorious for like harassing like Armenian people there. And one such incident happened with me. Like I'm not where like I remember the DARE instructor. His name was Officer Turpin. Like it was his last year teaching the DARE program there, apparently. And oh, by the way, yeah, apparently we call those second change agencies. Well, thank you for confirming that. So thank you. I appreciate that. what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the thing about damn it, what was I saying? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, so we had an assignment, right? And the assignment was, well, first of all, one of the assignments was to learn these basic rules, like respect authority, right? Respect authority, and also like, who is the authority? Like a police officer, a teacher, a lawmaker, things like that. And then one specific one that will lead into my next point is this specific assignment, which involved drawing a not wannabe gang member, which I did not know what the hell they were talking about because I was a kid. But then like I was like, okay, I'm gonna draw like me, right? And I was this emo kid at this time, and like I drew myself like with like a black shirt, and like I don't know. I don't know I don't know what a gang member is at the time of my life. I'm not associated with anything like that. I've never been. I don't know. I failed the assignment, and essentially like they have like a list of like groups of people that they associate with stereotypes. They profile you. They always profile you, and it can be from like your skin color. It can be from like the way you look and the way you dress. I mean, look at the PMRC and the way like they have their back and control, like family planning. Not family planning. That's not the right word. What's the thing? Back in the family. I think that's what it was called. Programs where like they literally like put like the Star of David in like instructional books on what symbols to look for when your child is part of the occult. So it's just racist and anti-Semitic bullshit like that like literally train the police into like becoming like institutionally racist as fuck. On top of that, like in Los Angeles, the police are part of a gang called the Executioners. And the Executioners are notorious for doing things like having tattoo parties whenever they shoot someone and kill someone. They have reportedly pulled over the mayor of Compton, and they did so based on the fact that she was black. And they not only did that, but they also called over 9 other police cars, and they attempted to interrogate the her husband while her child was in the back seat. And like once they realized she was the mayor, they were like, oh shit, whatever, because that's what police officers do. They're cowards, pretty much. And then on top of that, like in the same incident, like they're like not the same incident, but the same gang and the same police department. They took a black camp youth leader, and without charging him for a crime, they basically just kidnapped him, and they took him to some detention center and stripped him naked, and they tortured him, and he didn't even know what the fuck he was doing there. By the way, this is all on a news report by KTLA5. So if you can look this up yourself. So yeah, the cops in LA, everything that they're saying, that these people are saying right here, is correct. It's not a hyperbole. It's 100% correct. They are a gang, and the reason why they say that like other people are gangs, like marginalized people are a gang, is because they target those people in order to send them to prison, and they institutionalize the prison for slave labor. Okay, let's see. Let me see. Is there anyone else talking? Okay, go for it. I think Dad wants to talk next.
Just I worked in a city that was adjacent to LA County Sheriff territory, and so when we would have a big incident, they would show up to back us up sometimes, and just to confirm, like, my agency was bad. LA County Sheriffs were fucking out of control in ways that you cannot fathom. To the point that the police officers that I worked with, when we would see sheriff's cars rolling to back us up, we would go, "Ah, fuck, it's the sheriffs," because what they would do, they would roll in, beat the shit out of anybody that they saw, and then leave, and never. They wouldn't talk to us. They wouldn't leave their names. They wouldn't leave business cards, and so we would just be left in the aftermath of this fucking melee. And I mean, they were just. I cannot explain to you how violent, unpredictable, and unaccountable that they were, because LA County Sheriff's, I think, is the largest sheriff's department in the United States. And so they were just everywhere, and they were anonymous, and they were just like an orcish invasion coming into your city. They would beat everybody up. You would have no idea what the hell happened. People would be saying, "Oh, I want a police report for this." You'd be like, "I don't even know what happened to you." Like, those guys were out of control, and I've done trainings with them. They're on steroids. There are gangs in the prison. Like, there are legit. I'm not even, like, it's not even a metaphor. There are criminal street gangs that are LA County sheriffs. They have tattoos. They dress alike. They use nicknames and code names with each other. If you see the LA County sheriffs coming, fucking run. That's all I can say, because they are unaccountable and out of control.
Yeah,
I would like to. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go first?
Oh, sure. I would say a couple things in the DARE program. One, the DARE program was racist as hell. Like, their like fucking caricature of a gang member was just like a black person, but they made it's like a guy with like baggy pants and like a colored bandana and a tank top. I'm like, that's just drew a black person. But I think they understood how fucking racist it was, because they always made like the skin of the character white, despite the fact he was quite obviously coded as a black person. And two, anyone who's ever told you that you shouldn't run from cops is full of shit. You absolutely should run from cops if you can get away. Especially if you can get over a fence, because they won't chase you over a fence. That's all I really want to say.
Yeah.
Good practice.
Parody, GTA.
I've seen many of people run away from cops, and they never go over the fence.
They won't. If you can, like, back when some people I may have known in high school were playing GTA, if you were really good at jumping a fence, like, you could basically, like, short of like a felony, you could get away. Particularly if you were doing some if you're playing IRL Tony Hawk or something.
Have you seen that one the one style of getting over the fence where it's like slamming into it and then like flipping over it?
I have never seen anyone escape police over a fence, because that would be a crime.
Yeah, we don't commit crimes here. No, we don't. Absolutely none. We're good. We're good, law-abiding citizens here. A-OK, angels. Yeah. Go ahead, Jock. Or I'm sorry. Did somebody else call dibs on the turn? I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I got away from. But I was filming some police, and they ran to grab my mobile, and I just, like, it was like fight or flight, and I just gone. And the cops were chasing after me, and it wasn't to arrest me. They didn't say you are under arrest. They didn't actually nothing, like, I didn't do anything illegal. It's not illegal to film police. And the way I got away from them was actually, I saw a bus coming down the road, and I like ran in front of the bus and timed it just enough that I knew that anyone behind me wouldn't be able to follow. But it was a huge risk to me, of course, but it worked.
And like real talk, when I was a kid, we used to like do shit like, skateboarding, trespassing. We were children, so it doesn't count as a crime. But we would do that kind of stuff, just get like caught doing all leisure kickflips off of a loading dock or something, or like grinding on a fucking curb. And we would like, I remember my first run in with the cops doing that. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal, they would just tell us like go home or whatever, and we would just go home. But like, I heard the cops coming, and when they came, I just did what they taught you in school. I greeted them. I said, "How are you doing?" And next thing I know, they put my fucking face in the gravel along with all my friends. So after that experience with them, I learned like, yeah, you should just run. Like there are basically like no matter what, they're gonna beat the shit out of you no matter what you do. So I'd rather have a fighting chance of escaping the ass kicking than just take it.
I can confirm, actually, like, honestly, you shouldn't even fucking talk to them,
No,
like, straight up.
absolutely not.
Like, no, don't even say a word to them. Like, even that incident where I talked about me being on the freeway, like, I should not even have said anything to them, because, like, there was one incident, my first bad incident of being with a police officer was when I was 15 years old, and I ran away from home, and by the way, my crime was being out at 3 a.m. Past curfew. Which curfew is 10 o'clock in California. Again, for those who don't know, I live in Maine right now. But in California,
You have
like
curfew? It's curfew.
we're talking about like 2005. So this was not the COVID-19 era. So yeah, yeah, California has curfew. They've always had a curfew. But anyway,
Is that for everyone or just for minors?
minors. Anyway,
Wow.
so
I didn't
did you
know
really-
that this thing existed anywhere in the world.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. I think, but here's the thing, right? It's counterintuitive because like I remember running away from home that night, and I walked past this dam in Pacoima where it's known to be a dam where people throw dead bodies over the dam, and it's not safe. Like, I didn't know this at the time, but it's not a safe place to be. But that's just but like anyway. So I was walking there, and it was like 3 a.m, and this guy was there. Not a cop, but he had burlap sacks in his back seat and a dog. I think it was a Rottweiler, and he was wearing a trench coat. And as I passed by him, he said, just don't worry about me. I'm not going to do anything to you. Just keep walking. And I just did that. It was fine. I just kept walking. All of a sudden, a block later, I pretty much encountered a police officer who shined the flashlight on me, drove this way, and then he drove back, pulled over, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing out in Pacoima at 3 a.m?" And I'm like, I shouldn't have said anything, of course. The first problem I encountered was that I addressed him as dude, and apparently that was offensive to him because he doesn't like being referred to as dude. He likes to be referred to as sir because he's a fucking fragile ass bitch. And so then that's when he said turn around, and I'm like I don't know. I thought cops were supposed to be nice, or not nice, but nice to regular civilians, and mean to criminals, or this is my child mind having this logic here, and then all of a sudden I'm in handcuffs. They're literally in my pants, trying to pretty much look for whatever they can find. They go through my phone and they look at my girlfriend at the time, who is also a minor, and they're talking about how hot she was, By the way, they're cops. And yeah. This is Pacoima cops, by the way. Yeah, cops are fucking bastards, my friend. Fuck the police. And I think somebody in I think Eddie wanted to talk about. Eddie's not here, but Eddie wants to talk about Angela Davis. I think we should all talk about Angela Davis because Angela Davis is having some real good dialogue in the bottom, and we need to resurrect Angela Davis's discussion here in Our Prison's Obsolete, because the next actually it's good that Eddie brought up Angela Davis, because that's actually the next point of contention I wanted to bring up in my notes, which was prison breeds crime, and it's designed to fuel the state. The police is basically in place to maintain the interest of the state and the capitalist class. And we haven't touched on we lightly touched upon this, but we haven't really touched upon it too deeply yet. But in 1 second, I gotta do this. 1 second, it's this complicated ass thing with this. What darn it, this whole Streamlabs thing, this whole StreamYard thing. I apologize. I'm trying to run the StreamYard, and I'm trying to get Eddie back on. Where is Eddie? There is Eddie. There we go, Eddie. Yes, okay. Angela Davis talks about how, at one point in history in the United States, there were only a few, prisons, right? And then with the war on drugs, prisons fucking skyrocketed. And not only that, there has been, more women's prisons over the years, especially in California. And also with this book, The New Jim Crow, which I think is a very fascinating book, Michelle Alexander talks about how which I thought was I didn't even really realize this until just recently, but the drug use didn't even really have that much of an impact in poorer communities until the war on drugs was initiated, and then then not only convictions were put into place, but also excessive drug use were pretty much skyrocketing at this point. So those are two main points I wanted to get. Anyway, I'm passing the ball back to you guys. Here you go.
So in preparation for this stream today, I just read Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis. And I've also been at work when I can, listening to the audiobook Women, Race, and Class. And that Davis lady, real smart.
Hell yeah.
I'm sorry. EJ and Luna, you have to go soon?
Oh yeah. We got to run to an appointment in about maybe 10 minutes or so, but we're
you should go first then. You guys have to leave.
Oh, okay. I don't know much about. I've read excerpts from Angela Davis. There's a really great. She's got some really great lines. None of which are coming to my head right now, but I've quoted her in my videos before. But basically, I think what she does a really good job of demonstrating is just that. Well, okay. One thing that she talks about a lot is the fact that everyone commits crime. So, if you think about how many laws there are in the USA. I'm paraphrasing very, very much right now, and I might get some points a little bit off or whatever. But basically, she talks about how there's just so many laws in the USA that everybody is committing crimes. White collar, upper class people are committing various sorts of white collar crime. People speed. People do all kinds of things to break the law. And if you really think that anybody who breaks the law deserves harsh punishment, you're very, very, very high likelihood that you're being a hypocrite, because you probably break some laws. And there's another, I can't remember if she raised this point or if it was somebody else in a collection of articles, but there's a reason that, for instance, the tax code in the USA is so complicated. It's because in part it creates a lot of kind of justification for busting criminals that the state wants to go after. Obviously, there's a really famous example of Al Capone, who was kind of a violent gangster in his own right, but the state decided they wanted to go after him. They went after him. Things have happened. Similar things have happened to people who had political contentions with the government, to where there's a high chance that if you're if you're doing your own taxes, there's some point somewhere where you check some box wrong or something, and you probably broke a law. So the fact of the matter is, we're all breaking the law all the time. A lot of the times we're breaking the law without even knowing it, because the legal code is just so complicated in a big, massive, bureaucratic state like the USA. So I think that's just an important point, that where like a lot of people like to get all high and mighty, and they like to say, oh, well, if they broke the law, then if they didn't want to go to jail, they shouldn't have broken the law or whatever. But that's just for pretty much 100% of people, that is hypocritical. Everybody at some point or another is breaking the law. And the focus on punishment. And I think another thing that Angela Davis talks about a lot that I thought was really sharp was where she talks about the fact that punishment is not a deterrent. It doesn't do what it promises to do. It fails to deliver on the promises. People who are severely punished in prison tend to be recidivists. People come out of prison equipped and trained and often networked in to commit worse crimes than they committed when they went in. So she talks about a lot, those are just my kind of impressions, I guess, from some of the points I think Angela Davis has made that I think are really strong. But another thing is another thing is that Angela Davis and other activists in the Black community have been talking about this stuff for decades. And I think that it's only, exactly. So, as long as there's been policing and as long as there's been prisons. So, it's kind of like a hot buzz topic now for white folks like myself. But I think for the Black community, this is something where there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of research. There's a lot of investigation and visionary work as well, in terms of imagining what a society would look like without the police and without prisons. So in a lot of ways, I think we need to avoid, as white activists who want to become prison abolitionists, we can avoid reinventing the wheel a lot if we read the scholarship of people like Angela Davis and look at the work that folks have done with, for instance, the 8 to Abolition movement. People have talked, there's a reason, like when we talk, like this is something that, I guess this might be my last point, and then I'll let Luna talk because we're about to go. But my last point would be like, something that really annoys me is the way that liberals have tried to co-opt and take over the word defund, because the word, defunding the police is a strategy that was developed by Black activists it's going back a very long time. And the whole point is it is a path towards abolition. So defund was originally conceived as a strategy to work out abolition in our communities. And the whole idea is you take money away from the police, you invest it into the community, and the end goal is 100% absolutely, overtly abolition of the police and of the prison state. And yet liberals have taken this and co-opted it and twisted it to where now we have to have these discussions about, well, when we say defund, we don't really mean defund, and we don't really want to abolish police. It's like, no, actually...
Biden actually wants to give more money to the police.
Right, yeah, Biden wants to fund the police more, exactly. But that's just an annoying thing that I've noticed as well, where liberals will try to take radical... It's a process called recuperation, where liberals will take like radical leftist ideas, Black liberation ideas, anti-capitalist ideas, and then they will kind of like soften them to make them suit the environment of liberalism and capitalism. So that's something else to watch out for. Luna, you have any last words before we take off?
Oh, well, I just hope that we together can get more people to agree with us about how bad the prisons and the police, especially in the USA, are. And all of us also find a solution to, because like when we talk to people about like why we should abolish the prison and the police, they will answer about what the alternative solutions. So we need to be able to talk about that too. Mm-hmm. We cannot just point out the problem and give them no solution to fix that.
Yeah.
That's the way to get more people in our side.
Which is, again, why I think that vision work is really important, of like trying to imagine and explain what a society without prisons would look like. The last thing about Angela Davis, just real quick, because it popped into my head, is that she talks about how in one of her articles, or maybe an excerpt from her book, I wish I could, I should have thought to have these sources available. But anyway, she has talked about how it would literally be better if we just did nothing versus having the prison and the police state system, which sounds like this really extreme radical idea. until you realize how much damage the police in the prison state have done to, especially the black community.
It's so damaged that you like rather have nothing.
Yeah, all
That's
poor
crazy to me.
communities. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, like that harm that is done to a lot of these impoverished communities by the police far outstrips the problems with crime. So that's just another kind of, I guess that's another launching off point for the panel to discuss. We'll be listening as we head to our appointment. But yeah, I guess that's all for now from us.
Yep.
Sounds good.
We don't have a lot in the way of solutions to submit anyway, so I'll probably just be listening anyway as the panel continues. So
that will be the final part of this stream anyway.
Cool.
I have some highlighted parts for solutions. I don't have solutions. I have highlighted things that I want to discuss.
It's very complicated. Yeah. Problem.
But Eddie,
So
did you want to talk about Angela Davis some more? Because you were about to start doing that. Take care, EJ.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah. So yeah, that Angela Davis, real smart she was. But I thought was really interesting when I was reading "Our Prisons Obsolete" is that prisons haven't always existed. Like historically speaking, prisons, as we know them, are a relatively new institution. I do think it's important to acknowledge that prisons are an improvement on the even more barbaric situation that existed before, like corporal punishment or capital punishment, or just like horrific public shaming, and often quite like gendered public shaming too. So I guess it is better than that in the sense that like wage slavery is technically better than slavery, but it's still terrible. So yeah, when it came to what Angela Davis had to say about prisons, I thought it was really interesting about the book "Our Prisons Obsolete" is how she really did a really good job of laying out her solutions to what she believes would be a preferable alternative to the prison industrial complex, and she did a very good job of describing the horror of prisons. For example, like I'm sure most of you know that Black men are vastly overrepresented in prisons, and in women's prisons, Black women are vastly overrepresented, and Indigenous women are vastly overrepresented, and Hispanic people are vastly overrepresented. And what like EJ was talking about before, how a lot of people, not me of course, are constantly breaking the law. I've personally never broken the law, and I never will. But as he was saying about how people are constantly breaking the law is like used as a weapon of selective enforcement. How, a Black person doing what just anyone would do in a situation like, I don't know, driving to work with a broken headlight or something is grounds for arrest, whereas for a white person that might not be the case. And of course, Black people get disproportionately long sentences for their crimes and are usually kept in jail longer and under harsher circumstances. And Angela Davis also talked about like the relatively recent institution of supermax prisons, where when I guess normal draconian punishment isn't enough, they'll stick you in like a big metal box that you can't even talk to or see anyone in. So I don't want to ramble on about Angela Davis too much longer, so I guess I'll let somebody else go.
Jock, you can, hold on.
Nora,
I'm trying to remember the order, but okay, Nora, you can go first, and then Jock, I think it is. Okay, go ahead, and then Nora, I'll give you that list.
I think Jock said you wanted to go first, but yeah, sure, okay.
So I just started making a list. The Bulgarian. So there's a Bulgarian saying here that I learned in prison from an inspector who is as close to what you would call in English a social worker, but they don't have social workers in Bulgarian prisons. And let's say caseworker. And the caseworker told me there's a Bulgarian saying, everyone is kept in a criminality. So in Bulgarian prisons especially, they always make sure that everyone is committing some violation at some point. Like they just the way you have to live in Bulgaria, because things are so difficult to get approved and to get permission for things and just to live life, is that unless you in a Bulgarian prison, you want to live like completely Spartan in an empty cell, basically everything around you is not approved. So at any moment they can punish you for having an extra chair in your room, or not shaving, or just like anything. And then on top of that, it gets even more crazy because the Bulgarian authorities, they literally hide the laws so that you cannot implement them, you cannot fulfill them. They literally hide the laws. It took me like 6 years before I confiscated a copy of the law from an inspector. And it was the first time in 6 years that me and another 300 prisoners had access to the laws, the internal regulations of the prison. And they did, yeah, and they did this on purpose so that you couldn't. First of all, you couldn't know your rights. You couldn't know what you were allowed to have, but they also did.
You couldn't
that,
represent yourself,
you also. No, nothing. You don't know what's happening. And so the minute that you so-called step out of line in regards to shutting up, you start saying, "Hey, I want more food. I'm hungry," or "It's too cold. Why don't you have the heating on?" Like the minute you start complaining about these problems in the prison, then they use the fact that you're committing a violation without knowing it's a violation, because you haven't been told it's a violation. So the minute you become annoying for them, they use this, and that's why they actively hide the laws. And it gets more crazy than that. And it's not just the prison system; it's all across Bulgaria in all institutions. They hide the internal procedures. So it's not just internal procedures exactly. If there's anybody watching or listening from Bulgaria, but it's also like the orders, the orders that are given by the directors of the institutions, which are obviously which sometimes can be, sometimes they're in contradiction to the laws even. But the orders are not in a book. You can't go to a shop and buy a copy of the orders given by the director of the central hospital, or you can't find online like a book of orders written by the director of Sofia prison. The only person who has a copy of the orders is the director himself. and what's even more crazy is that every time I find copies of orders, people were using illegal mobile phones to take photos of them and then sending them out, and then we just print like 100 copies and send them everywhere, just so that everyone's aware that this is a new order given by the director. Be careful, because if you violate this order, they could use it as an excuse to punish you. So basically, the work of the association was just trying to get the laws out. I mean, they had a massive change of the laws in 2017, and there were prisons that were around, and the direction were all changes, and we had to go to the bookshops and buy 10 copies of the criminal code and the laws for parole and for prisons and these things, and we ourselves had to buy 10 copies, and administration just refuses to. They want people actively. They actively want people to be stupid. So that's what I want to say. Also, in reply to what Eddie said earlier, it's absolutely the same in Bulgaria with like Bulgarian prisons, maybe 60 to 70% being Roma. The prisoners are 60-70% Roma, but the population of Roma in Bulgaria are about 11% of the population. So it's definitely based on skin color. It's crazy over here as well. And I mean, there are I'm hoping going to be a report come out soon about this, but I know people who are doing some investigations about this, but there are like judges who are, I mean, it feels like 1933 Germany, or maybe it feels like, I don't know what year it was, you know, like the Mississippi burning type thing. It feels like that over here, whereby there are like literally there are judges who literally say, because you are Roma, because you have darker skin, the laws are applied differently to you. And this is written. This is not hidden. This is like insane. Like it's racism has become so entrenched over here that people don't even try to hide it. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Hey, Jock, real quick, can you answer the question that Sunset the Envy asked? Jock, would you be interested in writing something long form about your experiences in prison?
What does that mean? Like a book?
Like a book, an essay, maybe an article on medium.com, you know, anything, maybe a video, maybe a stream about your experiences in prison, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to start a stream. I'm new to it. So like EJ was helping me, and Breadbeard also are helping me work out. Like we didn't have streaming in prison, obviously. So I'm trying to catch up on all these things, but I'm hoping to have a regular stream. I don't know what my Twitch name is or any of these things, but yeah, I mean, I'm commenting also from my YouTube channel, which I haven't got really many. I've got only one video about my bees up there right now.
I'm trying to look it up right now. I have it. I followed you.
So I'm new to all the technology of this. So I'm learning as I go. And then I opened up a Patreon account as well because after 12 years of prison, I've been kept another year illegally by the government in Bulgaria without the ability to work. And then I was read bedtime stories. So
we stand with you,
so yeah, so the last topic we spoke about on the Twitch was about fascism in Bulgaria. And then actually after this conversation, I think actually a really good topic for my stream will be about police, specifically in Bulgaria, because it's like every country has its own unique attributes to different problems and these things, and the Bulgarian police are definitely different to what we know in the general like left critique that is coming from the English speaking world. So it's different. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Eddie said a while ago. Eddie was talking about how Angela Davis was talking about, you know, like prisons are a new thing. And I just wanted to say, like indigenous people here existed without prison, and in fact had their own ways of dealing with problems in the community. Like if something was going on, there was a lot of ways in which they resolved these issues. EJ talked about some of them where, like, you know, in Vietnam, where he got in a car accident and basically ended up, the community, instead of calling the police, resolved it right there and then. And, you know, there's things like restorative and transformative justice, which come from indigenous people and practices. And essentially, you know, like the United States came in, colonized, and essentially enforced slave labor on Black people. And then what happened after we got rid of slaves? They had to come up with something different. So they said, you know what? We have the perfect idea. It's called the criminal justice system. It's literally the roots of our prisons in the United States are literally just the reinvention of slave labor. It's just under a different name, under a name of justice, quote, like our justice system has basically stolen transformative and restorative justice and branded it as slave labor.
I think it's Eddie's turn, actually.
Okay. So I just also want to mention that, like I said before, about how prisons were originally seen as like a progressive alternative to the draconian methods of punishment in Europe. When Charles Dickens first saw first visited a prison in Britain, he was like horrified. He was horrified by it, and he said that he understood that the people who came up with this concept of having people pay some kind of like penance in a cell with a Bible, that he says, I understood this was supposed to be like a good thing. The people who made this system were probably trying their best to actually reform criminals, but what they've created is a monstrosity that has to be destroyed. And just a few other things about the history of prisons is, so I'm sure you guys have like heard of chain gangs and that kind of thing that were created right after slavery. A lot of black people, particularly former slaves at the time, actually remarked that chain gangs were far worse than slavery in a way, simply because at least under slavery, a slave master had a vested interest in making sure his human chattel didn't die, whereas people who had chain gangs would simply would just work groups of people to death. And this system was eventually even spread to women prisoners, and I think was it the 80s, 90s, when they tried to put women on chain gangs too, under the guise of feminism, which is, I think, just hilarious. So, yeah, there's definitely a time before prisons, and just as prisons were seen as a progressive step away from the horrors of corporal punishment, I think that it's kind of absurd to think that this is as far as we can go when it comes to progressing beyond barbarism.
Yeah, and in regards to like women in prison, like some like different like feminist essays and whatnot I've read. Like it's funny because like the prisons admit that women are able to work just as hard as men under like these conditions, and they admitted it back then when they enslaved black people. And but yeah, like we have this like contradiction in society where prisons admit women can work just as hard as men, where and like that happens in the prison, and in our actual society it's like no, that doesn't happen. And in fact, like I believe women are like incarcerated at like an even higher rate than like men in general too.
Yeah, yeah. They're women. Women are women. I mean, it's. I remember reading Ashada Shakur's autobiography, and like I remember it was one of the most graphic fucking books I've ever read. Um, like how the police literally otherized other like women inside of the police I'm sorry, the prison, pretty much and not only that though, if you're transgender, you don't go to a women's prison. Like if you're a trans woman, you don't go to a women's prison. You go to a men's prison, and the chances of you getting raped there are astronomical. Oh God, I'm sorry. That was a bit much for me to even go into. Read Shada Shakur, autobiography.
Not to mention that sexual assault by guards is essentially sanctioned by the state, because they're so like they're so unlikely to actually be punished for it, and not just that, but like cavity searches and strip searches are essentially a legal way for guards to get away with doing despicable things to women's bodies.
Plus, people who speak up are punished, and there are, inmates that will punish other inmates for reporting crimes and things like that.
Yeah, and they'll punish them in ways that are like,
Oh yeah.
not even
Oh yeah.
the what do you call it, the objective violence of like physical assault, but they'll be punished in ways like being denied sanitary products or being denied like soap or something
Or
like
food.
that. Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank you for carrying on the stream while I was away because I needed a moment. Yeah, you actually went right into my next point. Thank you for doing that because yeah, speaking of soap and speaking of sanitary products, like there's like entire like prisons like Riker and Alcatraz. Is Alcatraz still active? I don't know.
No.
No, it's
okay,
not.
but I remember Riker. Riker, where a friend of mine has a friend who is in prison. I apologize for mentioning Alcatraz. That was not educated, but I know Riker is still active, and they have the highest, one of the highest like COVID cases in prison in the world. And it's like the way they handle the way legislators handle prisoners in prison. I mean, granted, remember, you have to keep in mind the statistics we brought up earlier, right? Like the fact that like a lot of people who are in prison are in prison mainly because they have either done drug offenses that are harming themselves. They have done property crime, and even if they have done like a harmful crime to another person, it's really preventable by abolishing the prison to begin with, right? So now you have this global pandemic that is killing millions of people, and there's no structure to like keep the prison sanitary, let alone decent, like at a common, like a basic level, like and now like you're literally have like a house of people that are gonna die. I think I remember Kamazat's Altar who was just talking about how like the COVID response of the United States, like to quote him in his title, like it's literally like a genocide. It's literally like a genocide response. That's basically what it is. It's a genocide response. And now I want to move on to the last portion of this with moving on from this point to the last portion, which is the solutions, which there's a lot of discussion with how we go about police and prison abolitionism. There's a lot of diverse opinions about that. I don't know what everyone's opinion is on it here. I have my own opinions on it. And there's like opinions such as reform versus revolution. There's defund versus abolition, and then there's opinions on how to enact like community defense. So again, I'm passing the ball to you guys. What are your opinions on all of these different dichotomies here?
God, I wish Luna were still here to talk about that Saigon Night thing.
Yeah, me too. I was actually just Googling it like as soon as you guys were talking about it in private chat.
Well, as far as moving with like solutions to prison and stuff, like I'm all for abolition of it all. Reform is nothing but a scam. And in fact, I'm just gonna take like the farthest stance out there. I'm saying like people should be like freaking getting organized with arms to storm in and just free people from prison.
Based.
I have had my okay. I want to let you know right off the bat, Nora. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. Here's the thing. I have and on my channel, I made a video talking about Willem von Spronsen, essentially doing exactly that. And I mean, he was one person doing this. I feel that multiple people should do this, and not one person. But the problem is that as soon as I made a video about it, the Secret Services came to my house. And that right there is a thought crime, by the way. I'm letting you know right now, I have not done any crime. I have not been convicted of a fucking crime. I even went to the police station just to make sure that as soon as I found out they were coming after me, that I was convicted of a crime. The police said I was innocent of any crime whatsoever. They still came to my house, and just for the record, they just did not know what the fuck they were doing. Like I literally did not give them a single piece of information other than what was public on my YouTube channel. Then eventually my video about Willem von Spronsen got a community strike, which I still have to this day. August 1st, 2019. Thank you guys.
What the hell? I'm black. I'm radical. I do lots of parodies and video games. How come no cops come to my house looking for me?
No, but I mean, like, I get what you're saying. It's just that, like, I think what they were trying to do...
It's discrimination, man.
I feel like what they were trying to do is they were trying to figure out if I was going to be the next Willem von Spronsen. But the thing is that they don't understand that one thing for certain is that Willem von Spronsen is one person and I'm another person. I don't have the same material conditions as Willem von Spronsen, and so they just basically profiled me as basically the same person as Willem von Spronsen. They pretty much see the left as a monolith. That's pretty much how they see us. They pretty much see all prison abolitionists as a monolith. They see us as they don't see us as like people with diverse opinions and even disagree with each other at times. We have like different forms of different tactics on how to deal with things, and it's just like they pretty much like even if I respect Willem von Spronsen for what he did, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't do it alone. I wouldn't do what Willem von Spronsen did alone, because ultimately, it's adventurism, right? And two, I'm not trying to belittle him by saying this. I mean, it's just that's what it was. And two, it's just how do I put this? The word is that a dead comrade is one less comrade for us to resist fascism and imperialism as a whole. Like, so we can't lose comrades based on adventurism. That's why we need to organize. That's why you need to focus on things like mutual aid and do community building, help the community become stronger by, essentially by helping deal with the systemic problems that they deal with on a social level. Like, for example, one thing that my SRA is working with is they're pretty much like helping drug prevention, not drug prevention, but OD prevention, and like also like as much drug prevention as possible by promoting the use of needle exchanges and also the use of Narcan and things like that in order to prevent people from losing their lives, especially when they're about to overdose, and I think that's valuable information. That's a valuable skill that they're not teaching in school. For Christ's sake, like seriously, they're not teaching that shit in school, and they don't want to teach you that when Officer Turpin comes in and he comes in with a box of crayons and he makes you draw a wannabe gangster. He doesn't want to teach you how to save a life, because he'd rather have you, draw a black guy with a baggy pants. Anyway, go for it. Whoever is next, I think some people raised their hands.
Nora, why don't you go
Okay.
next?
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, Skylar's correct. Like, don't go in this alone. Build up your community. Mutual aid is part of dual power, which builds up, that strength that eventually grows strong enough to liberate people from prison. And I just want to say, like, imagine if like a collective of people, like we all remember seeing the photos of the Minneapolis police station burn and how empowering that was. And like how that made everyone just like instantly go to their nearest city and get out on the street. You all remember that, right? Now,
Yeah.
imagine if a collective of people stormed in, armed to the teeth, and so armed, in fact, the guards just all stood down.
In a video game, but yes.
Stood down aside, and they came in and liberated people from prison. That would be all over national news, and it would be so empowering that it would start a whole nother series of national resistance and empowerment. So that's what I think people should do: is organize, build power and stuff to eventually work towards this. And yeah.
Jock, I think you're going next.
Jock?
Just to Nora said yes.
Based. Nora.
Can you hear me?
Jock, are you all right? I think he's having bad internet issues.
Oh no.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Hey, Jock, would you mind maybe refreshing a little bit? I'll let you back in. All right, no worries. Whoever was next, I think Eddie was next, or I think Eddie was next. Or I don't know who was next actually.
Well, Jacques was gonna ask. That dang dad. Wait, what is your name? All right.
It's Phil. So, yeah,
Phil.
we did introductions before you got on. Yeah, it's Phil.
Okay, yeah. Jacques was gonna ask Phil a question, so I guess. Oh, there he is.
All right, let's. Did you want to try again with your question with to Phil?
Yeah, just to quickly to reply to Nora. I mean, as a prisoner for 12 years, there's nothing that I can guarantee you. Nothing I would have literally dreamed of that for 12 years of what you just said. So also I think also in terms of left-wing politics, as much as we have to be safe speaking in public on these issues. At the end of the day, whatever stream or whatever label you use for yourself, at the end of the day, it all comes down to controlling physical spaces, and that's basically what the left wing idea is about: is who is going to control that physical space. Is it going to be an individual? Is it going to be some rich person because they have control of capital and they have money, or is it going to be the people who are producing in that physical space? Are they going to control that space? So that's the for me, that's the very basis, the foundation of the idea of leftism. And in that regard, for prisons, until prisons are overthrown in such a way, and those spaces are no longer controlled by the right wing and by the capitalist class, then everything else is basically bullshit. Because as long as they have that weapon to put you into that pure tyrannical fascist authoritarian the pure machine of the state, as long as somebody has that power, then there is no way to guarantee liberation or freedom anywhere else, because they just take you out of wherever you are and put you there. So absolutely, the people need to become more radical, in my opinion, because protesting endlessly is it's bullshit. I mean, we saw that with the anti-Iraq war protests, when they were the biggest protests in the history of the world. Every country in the world had their record number protests opposing the war, and the war happened anyway, and all the governments just ignored everyone protesting. But I have a question for that dang dad, and it was actually connected with a topic from before. So what is your opinion about your experience with the police and their views on the left wing in general? Like, is there I presume, but I'm going to ask you, I presume it's either hostile or it's ignorance, and the police don't even understand or don't even know what is this. And I just wanted to know your opinion about it. When you were there, how did you feel that people around you were speaking or reacting to left-wing activists or ideas?
Yeah, so it's such an interesting question, because so when I was an officer, I was into right-wing talk radio. I listened to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. I don't know if those names mean anything to you over in Bulgaria, but in the United States, they're the biggest chud, broadcasters. That was the people that I listened to on talk radio while I was on patrol, in the cop car driving around and stuff. And so my conception of the left wing was anything that was more, anything that was left of, Ronald Reagan, anything that was left of, to us, Barack Obama was the most left-wing thing we'd ever heard of. Just shocking things coming out of Barack. And so now that I'm actually part of, quote unquote, the real left, now I'm like, oh, Barack Obama isn't left. What am I? Well, that's crazy, And so, it's a question. I would say the vast majority of people that I work with, completely ignorant of true leftist politics, completely ignorant of anarchism and communism, and communism is all Red Scare shit for where I was at. So, I worked in a predominantly white community, predominantly low income, and so there were left movements happening in there, but I don't know if I would have recognized it there. Would have. Am I not coming through? Oh shoot!
Admittedly, Jaka, you have some clicking coming out in the background. It could be muting Phil as well.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but to make a long story short, yes, I would say it was mostly ignorant. We would not have had a great understanding. And yeah, to your point, I was working in roughly around the time of the Iraq War protests, and not aware of it, not on our radar.
Right. Yeah, that pretty much confirms the way I view the cops. They're pretty much they pretty much are fed right wing. They're pretty much fed right wing ideas, and they're pretty much brainwashed into this form of nationalism, and this and they feel like they're doing some form of form of duty to protect the state, or to protect their it's like their patriotic duty or something of that sort, to protect whoever is in office, except for if that person happens to want to defund the police, which is really interesting, because even though they both hate Barack Obama and Joe Biden explicitly wants to raise I think it was $3 million for the police, and then also Barack Obama just recently said that defund the police as a marketing campaign or a strategy campaign is bad. And he wasn't referring to abolish the police either. So he was saying that it was like a pretty bad way of like pretty much getting your point across about like social and like police injustice, like social injustice with the police and stuff. And it's like I have my own opinions about like defund the police. I feel like that's not the solution to the problem, and I understand how other people feel that like defund the police can lead into abolishing the police. And while I don't entirely agree with that, I feel that like Barack Obama isn't really justified in saying that like, you know, what the people want, especially when it comes to like their intentions of like addressing a system that has like more than half the national budget involved, right? And allocating those resources and putting them into other social programs that would actually prevent crime for a fucking change. You know, like it would essentially, in a nutshell, like I don't understand how like the police could be against somewhat like an entity that basically supports them. It's all a little contradictory. I don't understand how they. I don't understand. Like, are they what? Did they? Okay, so you can go next, Eddie.
Oh, now I don't want to interrupt your thought.
It's okay. Listen. I have a learning disability, and sometimes I have a train of thought. It's part of autism. It's part of the thing that I have, like where like I have like a list of things. I also have a list of things in my head that I'm trying to process, and like sometimes like it kind of just evaporates. And yeah, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, I get it. I used up all my executive functioning for the day reading the entire book in one sitting. So
I get you. Although I will let you all know just real quick. It's a short book.
It's real short. It's about 100 pages.
Short, real accessible. It's real accessible, and I've even heard like former prisoners of like the American prison industry say that they've read it, and it's I highly recommend it. It's not a super complicated theory book. It's so good. Anyway, go ahead, Eddie. I'm sorry.
So, one thing I want to mention is that like, at least from the members, like the people I've talked to in my neighborhood, abolishing the police is like super unpopular, especially among anyone over the age of 30. So, because like a lot of neighborhoods are disproportionately affected by crime, and of course we know that's for like various economic reasons, but we really do have to like do a better job of explaining where crime comes from and how it's a symptom or problem that police can't solve, because most people are terrified of the idea of abolishing the police, and most people are terrified of the idea of abolishing prisons because they've been socialized in a world where not only is that the norm, but they've been socialized to think that these are good things, right? Like a lot of people, even black people, think that the problem with police officers is that they are racist. They don't think the problem is that they are police officers. And I don't want to sound like a doomer here. Like I'm not trying to like be doom and gloom, but I'm not exactly convinced that completely abolishing prisons is even possible without first simply changing the means of production as we have it, right? Like the mechanisms of capital are always going to reinvent some way to oppress people in a way similar to slavery or prison. So I think like attempting to just outright abolish prisons without first changing the way that we make stuff and we relate to others is kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I could be completely wrong in this. And I'm about to address Nora's last point about pretty much what I think what she. I'm trying to recall what she said. Basically, like, and I'm trying not to misrepresent your point. So please let me know if I'm not. Let me know if I am. You said something to the extent of like, if we did what happened in Minneapolis, going into the precinct and going into the prisons and like as a collective and rescuing all of the immigrants and all of the prisoners and burning down all of the plantations and things like that. Let me tell you, it's again 100%. It's not that I disagree with you, right? And I'm not trying to appeal to civility politics, right? Like, because that's not my intention. And again, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I've learned a lot about guns within the last month, like straight up. And you have to understand that like there's a huge difference between leftist gun culture and right-wing gun culture, right? Yeah, like big time. For example, right-wing gun culture is straight up about masculinity. It's straight up about like, you know, getting a gun bigger than your penis. It's straight up about like, you know, trying to be as macho as possible, trying to like, you know, just trying to like, you know, get the job done and like, you know, look as cool as possible, and like, and also in a nutshell, like be another Kyle Rittenhouse, you know? Like at this point, what the right is trying to do, they're fetishizing a goddamn child into being their hero. I mean, Ann Coulter, you know, the vapid snake that she is, literally said that she wants Kyle Rittenhouse to be the president of the United States. And the difference between that and leftist gun culture is that leftist gun culture focuses, they see the use of firearm as a use of defense rather than offense, and I can't necessarily listen, as a settler myself, I cannot tell you, and I cannot lead or direct a time or a place when it is time to burn down the plantation. I will not at all tell you when it is the time to do it. It is not my place. I believe it is the place of people of color. I believe it is the place of indigenous, black, indigenous, brown people of color. I honestly believe what settlers should do, especially leftist settlers or just settlers who are armed or who are at least interested in helping, they need to like help dual power structures and mutual aid pods who are already organized, or to continue organizing with dual power structures and mutual aid pods who are essentially pretty much resisting fascism in a nutshell. If I would not at all be the one to say, all right, let's go and just like go to Tacoma, Washington, and let's storm into the ICE detention center. That's not my job. Okay, my job is to propagate the idea of Chinga la Migra as much as possible. It's to echo the voices of the marginalized as much as possible. It is to help. It is to be there when necessary. It is not for me to lead. I am an anarchist for that reason. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
I would say we are not in disagreement. Nora's statement is entirely correct. We're not in disagreement there. The time to burn down the plantation was as it was being constructed, but right now would also be a good second. So when I say that, like, I don't believe that prison abolition is entirely possible under the current mode of production, I'm not saying that like we still shouldn't try. You know, that's not at all what I'm saying. And of course, you know, what happened in Minneapolis was inspiring and should be happening all over the country and all over the world. We're not in disagreement there at all. All I was making, but my point is that as long as capitalism exists, capitalism requires prisons, and as long as capitalism requires prisons, capitalism will find a way to make prisons.
Just real quick point, and I'm just gonna pass it to Nora. Remember, I think you've seen the footage of protesters like pushing back those cop cars in Portland, right? You've seen that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Really impressive and really momentous occasion, right? That's the kind of direct action you need to be praising, because it's people who are protecting indigenous and black and brown people who are about to be evicted by landlords, by settlers, and they are pretty much I saw the footage. There was some white people in there. There was some black and brown folks in there, and honestly, they were there as a community to. Let's put it this way: they were fucking fed up with the feds in there, and it got to a point to where the feds were driven out of town, and it's like that's the kind of direct action we need to see. And I'll even highlight some organizations that are led by black and brown people, like in Portland, for example, the Witches, who are a feminist, trans feminist organization that provide hygienic products and food and sanitary products to the community around. There's also the Black Youth Movement, who provide queer and POC spaces of different kinds. In fact, I'm surprised that they're so well organized to the point to where they have skating events. They have literature clubs. They have back to school funds and things like that. They're doing it during a pandemic when the police and the feds are coming in and literally every single goddamn night destroying their town. They're doing that there, and they're keeping the community alive and happy and flourishing. Even when things are just going down with the state and the police. So that's the kind of direct action, at least in my opinion, and I just feel we need to be giving our attention to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. I just wanted to say, you're right. We need to be doing dual power and mutual aid, and that's the only way that this kind of militancy happens. And for example, the Red House on Mississippi in Portland, that came out of years of mutual aid and dual power and connections with the community. That's not the first time something with this Red House has happened. It's been going on for a very long time now. And that is why it led to this kind of extreme response from the community. And in fact, I think it's important to mention out the pure militancy of that eviction defense. They were laying down spike strips, putting down caltropes, smashing police window cars, throwing bottles of glue and stuff onto the windshield so they couldn't see. And this all happened because of those years of mutual aid and dual power within the community. And as far as the prisons go, they're purposely putting Black and Indigenous people into prison to genocide them. That is the main reason to throw these people into prison. That is the reason why, is because we never got rid of white supremacy in the first place. And this is in fact violence on our community. So any action that happens in regards to destroying the prison system or just getting rid of it entirely is a self-defense action. And the reason it is because this is violence that has been going on for years now. It all started when the United States colonized here. When the Europeans came and colonized, and that violence had been going on since.
Anyone want to go next? I don't have anything to say.
Did Nora mute herself?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay. But speaking of defending people's homes, if I can, I would like to shout out the KC Tenants and Missouri Tenants Coalition. Last week we held an action where they were trying to hold evictions over the phone, and I don't know why or how this happened, but we had the phone number for the eviction hearings, and we just called in and straight up made so much noise they couldn't hold the eviction hearings. So shout out KC Tenants. Y'all should really give them a follow on Twitter. Check out what they're doing. They're constantly organizing new stuff like that.
Hell yeah, for sure. That's awesome. To always have a resistance that is very effective like that. That's awesome. The main thing that I'd like to drive home is when Laura, no, I'm sorry, Nora. I know another Laura. That's why I got you mixed up. That's about the second time I made that mistake. My apologies. Nora, when you talk about community defense, hold on. I'm sorry, Jock. You're making a lot of noise. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Really? Okay, it's silent here.
Anyway, thank you. Nora, when you talk about community defense, you're right. It's important to drive the police out of the neighborhood, and it's also important to attack the. I do agree with you that it's important to attack the prisons when necessary. I mean, well, it's always necessary to attack the prisons. And again, I could be wrong in this. I just feel that like what we need to do is we also need to build the community and what we do. Like I think you mentioned it in your previous stream with EJ, right? Like a form of community. Hold on, let's see what happened to Nora. Oh yeah. We'll see. Well, let me see. Nora is back. Let me see. Nora is back. Hello, Nora. Okay, so you mentioned in your stream with EJ that like community defense like is a form of anti-racism. Like anti-racism is a form of community defense. Like anti-fascism is a form of community defense. And I actually want to know what you think. Actually, like, do you? I'm trying to think here. Because here's the thing, right? Like, what do you see the steps necessary, right? What are the steps necessary to get from like the point to where we're building dual power structures and mutual aid pods and like we're helping those infrastructures like resist fascism to the point to where we actually start attacking prisons? Or do we do that simultaneously? Or do we what do we do there?
Sorry, can you repeat the beginning of your question? Sorry,
Okay.
I cut out.
No worries. So the question is that what do you feel is the necessary step to abolish prisons based on your method? Like, do you feel that like we should abolish prisons based on like a certain order, like in a certain order based on like building dual power structures and mutual aid pods and with people of color and Black and brown indigenous folks first and then we storm the prisons, or do we do that simultaneously? What do we do? What's the thing?
Well, I mean, it's all about like knowing like your power level, really, like what kind of power your community has. So like in terms of like since this mostly like everything that's going on is happening very decentrally. Like we know that certain areas are further along than other areas in terms of like dual power. And like we can take a look at Portland, for example. They're able to maintain consistent like rates of people who go to protests and stuff. And that's because they've been protesting and stuff for a very long time now, and they have those networks and stuff. If you take a look at where I'm in Colorado, in Denver, for example, we haven't had many protests at all. And in fact, like we're struggling to maintain, like even just get people to show up to protests. We're struggling with certain problems that other communities are not struggling as much with. And so like the steps would be essentially like, mutual aid, like figuring out your structure and stuff, like organizing with other people, building trust. Like that's really important. You need to build trust with people. Like people aren't going to storm a fucking prison if they don't trust you. Like imagine like sending someone a message that you met at a protest a week ago. Hey, we want to storm this prison together. Like that's not going to fucking happen. They're going to call you cop and like out you on social media for saying that. Like, and so, so essentially like what needs to happen is a very like, not slow, but like consistently like building that power. Like where is your city at? Like are they like still terrified at the thought of like guns? Like not too long ago Colorado was at that point. Like I was one of the only people saying that, hey, we need to arm ourselves. Like seriously, like come on guys, that's like the most basic thing here. Like we could get killed by fascists at any moment. And soon people started taking that up. And so you have to like slowly build up this like militancy to the point where, you're sort of like, the IRA or the Zapatistas or like Rojava. And that's what dual power is about, is slowly building power to the point where you can take on really, really strong actions, such as, taking over prisons. And like, just as an example, but like my thoughts aren't that unfeasible, because it's happened kind of. In Seattle, I guarantee you, like almost no one heard about this. In Seattle, they burned down a construction of like a new ICE detention center for kids.
Wait,
Like,
hold on. There's ICE detention centers specifically for kids. What? I know they hold kids in cages, but they make ones for kids specifically?
It might have been a juvenile center. I don't remember. But in Seattle, they specifically burned down one under construction. It didn't hit any news or anything. This was like targeted action, like they planned everything out. And the way it worked is they built up that trust. They said, like, are we going to have any freaking snitches in here who are going to film our faces and like get us outed to the cops? And like that takes time to build up that militancy and to build up that kind of action. Like you can't just do it overnight. Yeah, Skylar? Or Jock, whoever was first.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you a question. I'd like you to answer this question, and then I'd like Phil to answer. To Phil have. Well, I mean, I don't know. Phil has a closer, but maybe I don't know if Phil will have the last word. I mean, we can still have the conversation going, but I think Phil said he needed to go. So I want to ask this question. Then you can answer the question, and then Phil can basically say what he needs to say, and then if anyone else needs to say anything, they can, and then we'll wrap up at this point. So that's basically how I want the rest of the stream to go. So Nora, my question to you is how do you plan on going about arming immigrants straight up? And I don't say that like as a got you moment. Like, I'm genuinely concerned because when I made that video about hold on, let me finish. When I made that video about Willem von Spronten, I made a statement saying that immigrants need to be armed because ICE is targeting immigrants, and immigrants need to defend themselves. And it doesn't matter if you're a legal immigrant or an illegal immigrant, or if you're even white and you just don't happen to have a passport on you, right? You, my friend, can get targeted by ICE, and you need to be able to defend yourself. Whether it be like granted, the Proud Boys could literally just call ICE and just be like, "Hey, there's a dirty ass communist down the street," and like they can he's organizing a union of some sort, and what are you going to do then? Like, if you're unarmed and not ready to be able to protect yourself, And by the way, my view on firearms should be to defend yourself, and it should be done in a way that should be able to. I don't know. That's just my view. I could be wrong. Again, I'm always asking for other people's opinion, but now I'm passing the ball to you, Nora. So what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that immigrants going to be armed, but I'm just yeah. I think I might just have to invoke my Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate myself because that's.
I'm sorry.
No. No worries. I'm trying to think of a way to say this without getting myself into serious trouble. I'll just say there are ways. There's a lot of new technology with guns in particular, where you can essentially make a gun yourself if you have the right equipment. And it's not a terribly expensive equipment, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Phil.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. Phil?
Yeah, I wanted to throw a couple thoughts in about back onto the topic of solutions and what do we do next and stuff like that. And I think I guess for me, from my perspective, the people that I worked with when I was in law enforcement, and when I say that, I'm specifically meaning the people that lived in the city, the people that lived there, had a lot of needs, and so to our point, like we've been talking about, a lot of the crime that came out of the city that I worked in was due to economic deprivation and, frankly, desperation. The amount of people that I encountered that were working 3 jobs and hard jobs like roofing and God, what were they? Smashing peppers to make salsa, getting covered in acidic juices, hard jobs, damaging, awful jobs, and still didn't have enough to feed their family. That was where a lot of the activity that we managed came from. And so when I think about solutions to the issues that we're talking about, I think you have to help people. There has to be something to replace. We talk about all the time. You can't just abolish prisons and police and go, well, good luck. There's got to be something to replace it. And so, to our point, like we've been talking about mutual aid and things like that, I think we have to give people a landing pad. We have to give people, frankly, money. People need money to live and to eat. And I know I'm not I'm not blowing any minds there. But I also think you know, if we're going to abolish the prisons, if we're going to go into the prisons in Minecraft and liberate them in Minecraft only, and primarily in Minecraft, you know, if we're going to liberate these prisons, the people who come out of there, they need a landing pad, they need a landing strip, they need money, and they need a place to stay, and they're going to need substance. Some of them are going to need substance abuse treatment and counseling, and some of them are going to need medical care. Some of them are going to need all kinds of things, you know, just things we can't even think about. I'm sure Jock can speak to this better than I can, that there's going to need to be post-traumatic stress therapy and counseling and all these different things that we're going to have a safety net to catch all of the people that are liberated. And so I guess that's just what I was thinking of. Like when I think about the community that I worked in, when I think about, okay, where I used to patrol, what would happen if we abolished the police? You've got to replace it with something that helps these people. And so just to give you a concrete example, and then I gotta go because it's 2 a.m. here. A concrete example is if you look, I spoke about this in some of my previous videos. In Eugene, Oregon, they have a program called the Cahoots program, where they sent out an EMT and a social worker on calls for service that didn't seem like they were violent. And this program has been very successful in sending out aid instead of armed assholes to people that needed help. And they had tens and tens of thousands of calls for service. And the Hoots people only needed to call actual, you know, law enforcement, I want to say 200 times out of 20,000 calls for service. And so Eugene, Oregon has a program that is working. They're sending out social workers and EMTs. And I know Fern's in the chat, and I know Fern and I have talked a lot about social workers and the medical and mental health stuff. And so granting that there's a lot that needs to be done in the mental health system, Eugene, Oregon is still experimenting in a very positive way with sending out non-armed, non-asshole, non-retributive agencies to go help people who need help. And so I just, you know, whatever we do, we're going to need to develop that further. And so we can look to Eugene for that and other programs.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Phil, for coming on. Phil's channel can be seen in the description below. Some other channels I'd like to highlight really quick before Phil goes are Tactical Girlfriend, who is a leftist trans woman who gives firearm training on YouTube. And she is like fire, like straight up, like pure fire. And like then there is also what Fern H just said, Beau of the Fish Column. Like Beau of the Fish Column is just like a wholesome sweetheart who just basically talks about like a variety of different topics, including the need to arm people and to train people, and how and just like a and I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Beau of the Fish Column is also a former police officer, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so definitely check out Beau of the Fish Column. He's really cool. I don't watch Beau of the Fish Column very often. I do once in a great while, but I am subscribed to him, and I do like his videos. Anyway, Phil, like I said, your channel is in the description. Do you want to plug your Twitter?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at thatdangphil, all one word. I also grabbed at thatdangdad just because I didn't have it before. So you can find me either way, but I'm mainly on thatdangphil. But yeah, come say hi. I'm pretty approachable, and I don't have too many followers, so I'm still engaging with people that chat with me. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on the stream. This was great. This was fun. Would love to help out anytime, and hit me up anytime that I'm down for the cause. Anything that we need, I'm here to help. So,
well, thank you so much for being here. I think we're about to wrap up too. And we'll say a final word and plug our channels in and stuff. But and just whatnot. But other than that, thank you for coming on.
Nice to meet you, Phil.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you all too. Hope to chat with you later.
Take care. Anyway, anyone have any final words about just what we were talking about today at all? Okay, now I'm hearing an echo. I'm sorry. There's been some noise this whole time. I'm hearing an echo now.
Yeah, Jock hasn't spoken in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say for the question given to Nora was about immigrants and the only way I can see that being done and being done in a safe and legal way and not being able to too much, like at least give like obvious provocation to just have everyone arrested. The way to do that would be through legal American citizens who can organize solidarity groups with illegal immigrants. So again, solidarity, mutual aid, and then I'm gonna sneeze, and then so any weapons that are that you were speaking about would be used and owned by legal American citizens who have the right to use them. Yeah, so that was my answer, and that's a legal way to be able to help illegal immigrants, basically.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say like a couple things really quick. Like Phil is absolutely right. Like we need stuff in place to replace prisons, and I'm assuming if we're militant enough to liberate the prisons, we'll have some sort of space for them, kind of like the Zapatistas or something like that. And essentially like building mutual aid, like eventually you're going to start to be like essentially like a capitalist, but not really, where if your mutual aid grows strong enough, you're going to be producing more than you need. Like you're going to have more food to distribute than people actually need. And so what are you going to do? You need to find more people to distribute to, if that makes sense. And yeah.
On top of mutual aid, what I've learned about the SRA from joining them, and again, I want to emphasize I'm not a spokesperson. I'm just talking about my opinions and what I've learned from joining them, is that like they're not a militia group. First of all, they're not like they're not lobbying for guns. They're not like lobbying for firearm. They're not advocating for like actually for one. They don't go to protest as the SRA. They don't do that. And if I think even one of the rules is if you do, you I don't know what happens if you do, but you don't like assemble like as the SRA basically like to a protest, because that's essentially what right wing militias do. They pretty much assemble to a protest and they pretty much terrorize the thing. And also, not only on top of that, but it also goes into what you were talking about, Nora, is also like gaining the trust of the people. If like I remember very specifically, there was an anarchist book fair and in Orange County of California, and there were a bunch of anarchists who I think they were Redneck Revolt, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But they were armed, and their intention was good. Their intention was to protect people from fascists, if in case like fascists showed up and they tried to start shit. The thing is, however, is that the anarchists pretty much looked and presented themselves as like another police. And I mean, I'm an anarchist too, and I'm up for like protecting people in a space like that, but it just doesn't feel good when you are looking at books and you're trying to have a community event, and right there is a white guy with a gun. It doesn't matter what political alignment they are. It just doesn't feel good. Like I keep like straight up, like the people that I know who are leftists that are armed, they keep their gun at home. They don't they what people who are armed, who are leftists, typically do is, from what I've seen, they train other leftists and other people who are trying to learn how to use firearm, so that way they can defend themselves from when fascists try to kill them. That's why I joined the Socialist Rifle Association, so that way I can defend myself as a trans woman, not to seek adventurism or to like seek revenge for someone. Like, I don't do that. That's not. I mean, like, again, I'm a settler. I don't really have any say in telling anyone what to do. I'm defending myself, and I'm defending other people. I want to defend other people in marginalized community, and that's essentially what my role is as a person who is a settler on this land. And that's all I got to say about that. Anyone else before we wrap up at all?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. When the stream first started, I was I got the nerves, and I didn't actually give myself a proper introduction.
Go for it.
Now that I've actually had my time to collect my thoughts, let's see. I'm a physics student in university right now. I work part-time as a roofer. My boss is an abusive dick, and everyone I work with is kind of racist, but what are you gonna do?
Dump the bosses off your back.
I will throw his ass off a roof if he says the N-word again. So
What?
Like, I've already
Someone said the N-word? What?
last time I was at work, I remember I picked up a sledgehammer and I said, next motherfucker I hear's say the N-word is getting this thing upside their head.
Good. Like
in Stick Arena on Miniclip or whatever. So let's see. One more thing. Me and my buddy Alan, at Alan's Rage on Twitter, are finally started streaming on Twitch. We're really, really bad at it, but that's okay because we're getting a little bit better. And we plan to have a YouTube video come out sometime this winter. Finals week for me is this upcoming week, so it's been kind of hectic trying to get all the research done for it because we decided to pick topics that are way above our heads. We're going to be making videos and doing live streams about climate change and ecology from the perspective of Black people and from the perspective of physics, because we got kind of sick and tired of seeing, temperate liberal hand wringing about climate change and the existential threat it poses to all of us, and how it's going to disproportionately affect Black and Brown communities and coastal communities and people in the global South. So if you're into that kind of thing, maybe give me a follow on Twitter, and I'll give y'all updates whenever we stream or when our video finally comes out.
okay.
Organize, agitate, unionize your workplace, fight for general strike, train yourself in firearms, in Minecraft, in GTA. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying train yourself on firearms. There's nothing wrong with saying train yourself on firearm. It depends on what you do with firearm. It's different.
That's true. Yeah. I did have a bit of a problem when it comes to the firearms organizing. Is that one of the more moronic members of one of the organizations I'm a part of kind of burned our bridge with the SRA just by being a moron. So
absolutely, not every organization is perfect, and I am going to admit that right now.
Yeah, it's his fault. It's definitely his fault. We shouldn't have brought that asshole with us.
Okay, Nora and Jock. I don't know. Okay, Nora will probably be back. Okay, Nora Foisey is okay. Okay, never mind. Okay, there you go. Nora, there you go. You're back. Nora, do you want to plug in your Twitter on the basically on the video, and then
Yeah, my Twitter is at Nora Fozy. Just a minor, maybe not minor trigger warning. If you be going to my Twitter because there's just been a lot about like abuse in our circles and stuff on my Twitter. I'm really unapologetic, obviously. So yeah, you can follow me there. That's about the only place you can find me, unless you know me.
Okay. Okay, looks like Jock is on the phone. I'm gonna plug in all my stuff, including all the stuff that's in the description, and then Jock can plug in his stuff, and then we'll wrap up, and then we'll pretty much end the stream there. So, in the description below, I'm actually gonna do this real quick. One sec. Oh wait, Jock is done. Okay, Jock, go for it.
Sorry, I just got a call from someone in prison, and if I don't answer the call, then I can't call them back because they're using a prison phone. So go for what?
Could you plug in your socials, like your Twitch, your Patreon, your like anything that you have going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I use mostly my Facebook page, which is just my name, Jock PalFreeman. And yeah, like I said before, I'm also trying to learn to stream on I guess Twitch, I suppose. And I mean, if I get enough money, then I'd like to pay for that ability on StreamYard to stream to all the platforms at the same time. Just because for 13 years I've been not been able to be employed because of prison and because of migration. The Ministry of Interior prevented me from leaving the country for a year and didn't give me any legal status, so I wasn't able to work for the last year after I got out of prison. So I'm looking also for people to help me out with Patreon and things like that, and then so I'm doing my activism for the Bulgarian Prisoners Association. At the same time, I'd like to do streaming about things in general, but also specifically about Bulgaria, because I'd really like to get information out in English about what's happening here in Bulgaria, because it's very censored. There's like two worlds. One is in the English language and the other is the Bulgarian language, and they're completely different. So I want to try and bridge that language gap.
Solid. Very solid. And those are some very good goals for you to have. And honestly, like stay in touch with me and stay in touch with EJ and stay in touch with your friend Breadbeard, Soft Boy Social Club, because he got me in touch with you in the first place, and we'll help you get to that point too. We're your friends, we're your comrades, and we'll help you out indeed.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So
I think also that should also be something that actually people should do more often. Maybe when people leave prison, maybe they should even be like some campaign or some group. Or I mean, it's the USA is so big, the world is so big. But maybe if you guys could find more ex-prisoners who have just come out of prison and maybe help them with some of this stuff as well, because the technology is just like space age stuff for us when we leave prison without being able to see this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't forget, everyone, like another thing you can do as well is you can also write to a political prisoner, such as Mumia Abu Jamal. Mumia Abu Jamal was wrongly accused of killing a police officer when a police officer was pretty much arresting one of his friends, pretty much on baseless charges. And when there was evidence to prove that Mumia Abu Jamal was innocent, the police pretty much destroyed the evidence, and Jamal to this day is still in prison. So he's on death row right now. So in a nutshell, like writing to a political prisoner and advocating for political prisoners, especially like Jock PalFreeman here, like it's a big deal because like these people are wrongly accused. They're fighting for justice, and at the end of the day, like sharing your own humanity it changes everything straight up. So to wrap up everything, I'm just gonna read off the list of things that you should check out in the description. And by the way, I want to thank you all really much, all the guests here, Nora, Eddie, Jock, and EJ and Luna, and Phil, for all coming on today. I'm really happy that you all came here. You can feel free to take off if you want to, because at this point I'm just gonna read the description. But thank you so much.
Can I mention one more thing before I take off?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I forgot to actually tell y'all what my Twitch is.
Go for it.
It's Leaf Left, Leaf_left. Still working on the name, but that's our working name right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Sounds
if
good.
you're also interested in ecology, climatology, physics, or just leftism in general from a Black perspective, also feel free to follow at Alan's Rage on Twitter too. He's my partner in crime when it comes to this kind of thing. So
It's Alan with one L or two L's?
2 L's, Alan's Rage.
Okay.
I'll put it in the comment.
All right. Jock and Nora, I'm already in touch with you. Eddie, I'd like to stay in touch with you, please. All right, if that's possible.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just hit me up on Twitter. I'm pretty sure my just hit me up on Twitter. My ad's in the chat. So
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really blessed to have you here. I'm blessed to have every one of you guys here. Thank you.
Okay, good night, y'all.
Good night.
Thank you for having me, Skylar. I'm gonna dip out now. I'm very tired.
No
And,
problem. This was a lot. So thank you so much for your labor. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And Jock, nice to see you again. Hope you stay well. Bye bye.
Yeah. Nice to see you again.
Take care, Jock. I hope you have a good one. And I hope you have a good day in Bulgaria.
Yeah, it's just starting now, and it's 9:30 in the morning. I've been up since 4:30.
Yeah. You woke
Ciao,
up early.
ciao.
You woke up early for this stream. So that's awesome. That takes a lot, because I've been up for 2 days straight. So yeah, I don't blame you.
All right, have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. So I'm gonna go over some of the things that are in the description, and then we'll wrap up the stream. Skylar Sabo, so all of my links are in one link. So it's called All My Links. So some of that stuff is for 18 and older. And honestly, don't follow me if you're under 18. Straight up. Don't follow me on Twitter if you're under 18. And I have a Patreon. I also have some other things that you can follow me on. Mainly my source of income right now is my music. If you like, my music is free, but like, you can download my music and choose to donate if you wish. And when I get money, like, I eat bread and I eat like all sorts of nutritious food in order to stay alive, so I can do shit like this. So if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know, and I will. It would greatly help me if you could buy my music straight up. It's in all my links under, like, there's Autistic Chainsaw, which, and yes, I am an autistic person, by the way. I've been diagnosed when I was 3. I was diagnosed when I was 21 again. I've made multiple videos about growing up with autism and my perspective on autistic living and things like that. What kind of music, you ask? It is ska punk and folk punk and things like that. So that's the kind of music I play. I'll give you a little chorus of my newest song, just a little quick, if you're interested. Coward out, little bitch. Coward out, little bitch. Oh yeah, coward out, little bitch. Coward out, little bitch. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's my newest song, and so you can get it yourself. You can get it. It's pretty dope. It's on my YouTube channel too. Also, non-compete. I've known non-compete for a long time, which is EJ and Luna. Pretty much, they have a broadcast that happens every Sunday. They're pretty dope. And EJ is, I mean, like EJ is just a wonderful soul, and like honestly, I'm glad he was here today. Even if he didn't talk very much, I'm glad he was here. I'm glad he was present, and I'm glad that we got to talk about everything that we got to talk about today. His input was really wonderful. Luna helped organize everything here. Luna actually got some of the other people, such as Nora and Eddie, on board. And if it weren't for Luna, we wouldn't have such a wonderful cast of people here. So we need to give Luna a huge round of applause for this. Like if like half of this stream was thanks to Luna, straight up. That dang dad. Honestly, I'm gonna say this right now. All cops are bastards except for the cops that quit their job. And I say that dang dad is not a bastard, at least in my opinion. That dang dad, which is Phil. I don't know. I feel like I made a friend. You know, I feel like I made a friend. You know, I feel like I learned a lot. You know, I don't consider him some savior of the left. That's like, you know, hey, this is some ex-cop who's like, you know, the authority on, you know, what prison abolition is. But at the end of the day, I feel that, like, you know, he's a friend, and like that's what you know, that's what we need. And by the way, fuck yeah. Yeah. Anyway, then there's Jock PalFreeman. You'll be surprised on how much material there is on Jock PalFreeman. There's a ton of material on Jock PalFreeman. You know what? Go there in the description. There is a link to his Patreon. Go support his Patreon right now. He needs the money. He needs the money to survive right now. Because I mean, let's face it. You know, he's an ex-prisoner, and ex-prisoners like are you know, they're pretty much put back into society in a way that is like, you know, it's like it's one of those. I remember. Okay, I'm gonna reenact a Lewis Black moment. It's like, you know, you go to prison, like a Lewis Black bit, right? And it's like and like you go to prison, and then like you basically are. You basically get tortured, and you basically like suffer for like a long time, and then all of a sudden you're released from prison. It's like, now go. You have no way of being prepared for the rest of your life. Go. Just like how I was like, you know, trained to do the cash register at Kmart, basically. Thanks, Kmart. Thanks for training me. You didn't train me at all. Anyway, so the next section is bail funds. Bail fund projects. I picked 3 different ones from what I found. There's like the Community Justice Exchange, there's the Bail Project, and then there's the third one, which I feel like it's the most valuable one, which is the list of community bail funds. I didn't look through all of them, but like I from what I gathered, they're mainly from the United States. If you can actually get like a bail fund from a different country and put it in the description, that would be poggers as shit. So please do that. Also, now let's talk about organizations you can support that involve police abolition, right? So Black and Pink is a queer prison abolitionist organization. In fact, I was made aware of them because of my roommate, and they were saying that that there is one in Boston. And I was like, oh, cool. They have one in Boston. That's cool. And then I Googled them, and I'm like, oh, shit, they're like everywhere. So yeah, Black and Pink, if you're queer and if you're a prison abolitionist, you're in good company, my friends. They're pretty cool. Incarcerated workers are pretty cool too. I believe it was Kamazat who introduced me to incarcerated workers. And they're pretty dope, honestly, because you know, you could be, let me put it this way. It's important to understand that like you could be working with labor, you know, unionizing a collective. No, you could be unionizing a factory, and then all of a sudden and you could have a strike one day, And when you have that strike, right, you know, whether it be picketing or whether you be whether you would be like pretty much just like doing a sit-in, the police will try to arrest you. That's what the incarcerated workers are for. It's to protect the working class from being incarcerated and to empower the working class who are already incarcerated. Critical Resistance, I'm not going to lie, I barely looked them up, but they do a lot of prison abolitionist work, and they cover a lot of prison abolitionist topics. I highly recommend checking them out as well. Bulgarian Prisoners Association. They're the organization that Jock PalFreeman founded. So go check them out. The link is in the description. Now, further reading. I got a big ass list for you guys. 14 books, all from actually submitted by people who participated in the stream. The first three. Yeah, the first three. Yeah, we'll go with the first three, which were submitted by me, right? So, the first one is called Are Prisons Obsolete, which is the one that we all refer to the most, right? And I will say, if you are a beginner in this topic of prison abolition, right? If you want to get involved in prison abolition and you just don't know where to go, this is the book for you. And Angela Davis is a former Black Panther, okay? She's a former Black Panther. She's been around the block, straight up. She is amazing. And she is a very, 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 very like Eddie said, she is so fucking smart. Like, oh my God, some of her speeches are powerful as hell. Powerful as hell. Also, Black Prisoner Caucus in Washington. Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. And you're right, Javier. I do agree. Ex-cop comrades can provide us valuable information. I fully agree. Thank you for putting that input in there. That's very, very, very wise, actually. Now, this one is the next one that's on the list. The New Jim Crow. This one is really, really, really dark, but it's really, really good of a read because it actually kind of talks about how there's a big sense of like criminalizing like specific groups of people within within pretty much all forms of the community, you know, like marginalized communities, you know, and when marginalized communities get criminalized, they are more likely to go to prison. And it's like, I remember even saying that like in the New Jim Crow, it explicitly said something to the effect of like, it was even a rite of passage for Black teens to grow up and to go to prison based on how the system was set up. And this is a really good book. It's written by a former member of the ACLU, and it's a really radical book. It's so good. It's so fucking good. The next book on the list, I'll be honest with you, I've not read very much of it, but I did read a chapter of it, and it's on my channel if you want to watch me read it. It's I'll tell you about that chapter in a second because I think y'all will be interested in it. It's called Captive Genders. Okay, Captive Genders is it's pretty much a book about the segregation of transgender people and queer people in prison. And we talked about that earlier today in this stream, right? We talked about how transgender people, if you're trans, you don't go to a prison that is designed for your gender. And besides, the point of a prison is to literally like strip you of your identity. It's to strip you of who you are. It's to dehumanize you. It's to make you into a soulless like void. And there is no other book that I would recommend to basically illustrate that point than this book right here, Captive Genders. Now, it's not written by a specific person, but it is written by multiple people. It's a collection of essays, and one specific essay is written by. Hold on one second. I want to make sure that I can pull up the essay really fast. I want to at least show you guys what it is because it's a good essay, and it's by a former trans woman who prisoner. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time saying the right word, but she's a trans woman prisoner who is on Twitch right now, and you all can go watch her today. Yes, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna go to that page. 185. There we go. 185. So this trans woman who's on Twitch, by the way. Shit, hold on 1 second. The trans woman who's on Twitch, who's a former prisoner. There it is. Look at that right there. There you go. She's in the book, my friends. Yeah, Chelsea Manning's in the book. Chelsea Manning's in the book. She wrote a section of this book while she was still in prison. And it's a good read. It's good memes, my friend, good memes. And I highly recommend getting it. Now, this is not on the list, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. Queering Anarchism. This is not a prison abolitionist book, but there is a book about queer people of color in prison. It's called Tearing Down the Walls, Queerness, Anarchism, and the Prison Industrial Complex by Jason Leiden. And it's on page 195. I highly recommend getting this book because it's if you're looking to get a non-liberal perspective on and much more radically left perspective on anarchism and queer politics, for lack of a better term, then I highly recommend getting this book. It's fantastic. Now, those are all the physical copies I have, and those are all the ones that I submitted. Now, let's talk about the rest of them. I don't really know too much about the rest of these books because and they're really also essays, but like you can check them out in the description. They're all here. So there's like revolutionary examples of police abolitionism, anarchism and abolition part 1, 2, and 3. There's also is abolition possible? Is prison abolition possible? There's also Are Prisons Necessary, which is written by Peter Kropotkin. Another one written by Peter Kropotkin is in Russian and French prisons. There's also prisons and their moral influence on prisoners. I believe that was also written by Peter Kropotkin. And then lastly, this was not written by Peter Kropotkin, but it is about Peter Kropotkin's views on prisons, and it's called Peter Kropotkin and the Prison System. So yeah, we have a plethora of anarchist views on the prison system. Like I said at the beginning of the stream. So the last two were submitted by Phil, also known as That Dang Dad, the ex-cop. So he did have a couple of submissions. So the first is, who do you serve? Who do you protect? That is on the Anarchist Library. And lastly, this one is not even out yet, so you're gonna have to wait until February. It's called Change Everything. I don't know what the book is about, but he recommended it, and it's on the Haymarket. It's on the HaymarketBooks.org. I should do a book review series. No. Holy shit, Javier. I'm sorry. I can't do a fucking book review series. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say right now, right off the bat, I love that you're enthusiastic about my content to the point where you would love to see me do a book review series. I really appreciate that. It's just the thing is that I never read a book in full. Okay. If you want someone to do leftist book content for you like this, subscribe to Radical Reviewer. Straight up. Yeah, thank you, Delv. Yeah, Radical Reviewer. Radical Reviewer. I've actually collabed with Radical Reviewer. I did a anti-cop video with Radical Reviewer. I've also reviewed Post-Scarcity Anarchism by Murray Bookchin with Radical Reviewer. So get your exactly. Just get hooked up with Radical Reviewer today, because Radical Reviewer is a good puppy. All right, everyone. Whew. Yes, and he's a good boy. All right, we're done. Everyone, go to sleep. Go to sleep, everyone. Good night. Also, take your medicine, drink some water, kiss your dog, kiss your cat. All cops are bastards. 1312. And fuck 12. Chinga la migra. And whatever other anti-police memes you can think of, type them in the description. Bye!